Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. We're waiting for those tubes to boot themselves up before we get into the business on the day, because we've got a lot to attend to. We've got an announcement from President Trump about something coming down the pike tomorrow, which is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, there's some good stuff inside of it. But we're going to go through a bunch of things today. We've got updates on the JFK files. Trump said those are going to be dropped coming in very soon, coming tomorrow. What's up, locals just joined us. So we'll go through that announcement quickly. But then we got some big stories today. Of course, we have this deportation situation where over the weekend, Trump and the Trump administration deported some enemies of America. And now we've got this whack job judge who's trying to order them kind of back, or say that Trump violated a TRO for ordering them out. And there was a hearing that just wrapped up like 15 minutes ago. Literally, I was listening to it as we were getting ready for the show. Not much there other than the judge wants some more briefing, and they'll come back, I think, this week on Friday, Saturday, and this will continue on. But it was a little bit of an exploration of what happened. And so we'll go through this because we had the president of El Salvador, Bukele, who said, oopsie, we already got the prisoners, so they're not coming back, and it's already done. Sorry, not much you can do about this. And a bunch of filings have been going back and forth. So this is the case. You can see it's out of the District of Columbia. We had all these people who did not want to be afuera'd out of our country, suing all these people, suing Trump, Bondi, Kristi Noem. And you can see there's declarations of JGG, of JGO, of WGH, and JAV saying, don't deport us. Well, some of them are still here, but others of them are gone. And we'll go through that because there were some fun filings. Trump and the administration submitted a notice to the court letting them know what they've done. And we'll see what they wrote specifically, because they responded, these JGGs, these afueras, they were very upset about what Trump did over the weekend. They filed a response. They say, Trump's laughing about this. Trump and Rubio are mocking everybody because, well, they kind of are in a way. And they put that in their filing. And then we had the hearing today. So we had Trump responding to this, trying to vacate the hearing, right? Like last minute, this came skidding in here. And then they actually had the hearing. The judge said this was denied, had the hearing. We'll go through the highlights of what happened at the hearing and see what is coming next, because they're telling us more will be coming down the pike. Now, Tom Homan was out speaking about this. We'll hear what he had to say, and we'll hear from Burchett as well. Then we're going to turn our attention to other scandals in the federal government. This one, of course, involving Biden's Autopen. And the question, of course, is, are the Biden pardons void? Are they immediately invalid? We'll talk about it. I think it's a fun wedge issue and something that is going to be discussed. And I like how it keeps these corrupt select committee members front and center for the foreseeable future. But we'll talk about whether there is any actual conclusive determination that the Autopen alone would invalidate the pardon power. And I don't think it does. Spoiler alert. But we'll come back on that. We've got more reaction because the Oversight Committee, not the committee, but the Oversight Project, rather, from the Heritage Foundation, they've been on this one for a while, and it's nice to see this reach the president's ear and to have him pop up on this and say, yeah, you know what, maybe there is something to this, whether it invalidates them or whether it just draws attention to it, we'll see. But lots of coverage on this. Adam Schiff, who was one of the people who got that pardon, came out and responded on this. Hans on X was also saying it's pretty interesting to notice how the Autopen signatures are different when he signed a very important document for his son, Hunty Poo. But we also had this letter that came out earlier this month from Andrew Bailey. We talked about this a bit, I believe, but we'll hit it again. Or I think maybe we didn't. We just mentioned it in passing. So we'll read through this, see what his justification is for opening up an investigation. This one went over to the OIG, Michael Horowitz. And we got crying Kinzinger coming up. So look at him. He looks terrible. But he's out there in his car ranting about Trump. Come at me, bro. Come at me. And this guy's hilarious. This is his real account, just to be clear. Slava Ukraini. Slava Ukraini is what he has there in parentheses. And then he's got the Ukrainian flag and the Israeli flag, in addition to the American flag. This guy's like a meme. They're like these meme accounts that are like, I forget what the names are, but they put their funny names in there and they put all these, flags and pronouns and all this stuff. It's basically what Kinzinger has become. So we'll come back on that. We got more reaction from the people who have been working on this guy right here, and we'll hear from Karoline Leavitt, of course. Then we'll also hear from you, and we'll see what you say about all of this and more, because it is a beautiful day. And you know what else kind of a day it is? It's a lucky day. It's St. Patty's Day, baby. And you know what that means? Green. Green, 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 including greens from our friends at Field of Greens, because today is everybody's lucky day. Field of Greens just kicked off a huge St. Patty's Day sale. You can get 30% off when you use the code LUCK. L-U-C-K. Plop it in there. Look, now we don't always eat as healthy as we should, but Field of Greens has your back. One delicious glass is packed with a rainbow of doctor-selected fruits and veggies to support heart, kidney, metabolism, and more. So even when you go for the burger instead of the salad, we all do, you're still giving your body the good stuff it needs. And during their St. Patty's Day sale, you can save some green while you drink your greens. Save 30% on all their popular flavors and their bundles when you use code LUCK. Whether Field of Greens is already part of your routine or whether you've been waiting to give it a try, now's your chance to save big. And the sale is only for a few days, so don't miss out. Go to fieldofgreens.com, use promo code LUCK. That's fieldofgreens.com, promo code LUCK. And get your Field of Greens today. Get healthy, save some green while you're drinking your greens. And remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. That's why they're here. And they're delicious. So check them out, fieldofgreens.com. Code LUCK. Thanks for supporting the sponsors of the show. All right, now, let's get into business on the day. Let's start with this one, shall we? Huge announcement from President Trump came out today over at the Kennedy Center. He's cleaning house over there. Bunch of goons in charge. He says, not anymore. Okay, this place is dilapidated. It's falling apart. Nobody's going down into these rooms anymore, so it's time to fix it. But while he's there, obviously, Kennedy is an important president who was assassinated right in front of everybody's eyes. For decades now, we've been wondering what actually happened with that. Kind of feels strange that our government won't tell us who shot and killed the president, unless the government knew or was involved in it or was a cover up because they don't want someone else who was responsible for it to really be found to be responsible for it. Lots of questions percolating on this, but the president came out and he said, we're going to get some answers tomorrow. How many pages of answers? 80,000. Whew, that sounds good. We'll see if we can read all of them tomorrow.
But while we're here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this.
Yeah.
And I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard, and that's going to be released tomorrow. We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files, and that would be tomorrow. Do you have anything else to add to that, Carol? So that's a big announcement. They've been waiting for that for decades. Then I said during the campaign I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word. So tomorrow you have the JFK files. What time will they be released?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon, okay.
Have you seen what's in the files? Have you read them?
I've heard about them.
Was there,
Anything interesting?
It's going to be very interesting.
was there an executive summary supplied to you, Mr. President?
No, I'm not doing summaries. You'll write your own summaries. It's many pages. Is it 80,000 pages? Approximately 80,000 pages. So it's a lot of stuff. And you'll make your own determination.
We'll see what's inside, but we're excited for that. So thanks for coming back tomorrow. We'll see what gets dropped, and we'll assemble what will surely be a little feast from the interwebs, devouring through 80,000 pages. And so we'll come back and we'll hit the highlights. Thanks for subscribing and being here when we're back here tomorrow. But nice update from the president. But meanwhile, we have a situation afoot in the federal courts. Federal judges now getting told by Trump and foreign leaders. You see, this was Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, posted this over on X. This came after the New York Post reported that a federal judge orders deportation flights carrying alleged Venezuelan gangbangers to return to the U.S. These people are on an airplane flying down to El Salvador, Venezuelan gangbangers, who are going to another country's prison because Bukele will house them there at a low price. Flying them out. Trump invokes the Alien Enemies Act. We'll read through his order and we'll catch up on all of the moving parts to this. But what happened is the judge says, turn around, bring them back. Too late. Womp, sorry. Nayib, he says, oopsie, too late. They're already here. We already put them in their cells and we're not getting them out. So come and get them, federal judge, out of Washington, D.C., who we'll talk about here in a minute. But here's what Nayib posted. He says, look, today, the first 238 members of the Venezuelan criminal organization called Tren de Aragua arrived in our country. This is who we shipped out of the country, and this is who the judge wants to bring back in. 238 of Tren de Aragua arrived in our country. They were immediately transferred to the CCOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, for a period of 1 year. Now, the United States will pay a low fee for them, but a high one for us, right? Cheap for us to send them out, and a good fee for them to receive. Well, we're going to pay a lot for these dudes. Now, over time, these actions, writes the president of El Salvador, combined with the production already being generated by more than 40,000 inmates engaged in various workshops and labor under the Zero Idleness program, will help make our prison system self-sustainable. Now, as of today, it costs $200 million per year. But on this occasion, the U.S. has also sent us 23 MS-13 members, you've heard of them, wanted by Salvadorian justice. Okay, they want these dudes too, including 2 ringleaders. Now, one of them is a member of the criminal organization's highest structure. Judge loves these people. Bring them back. I want to hang with them. Bukele says, this will help us finalize intelligence gathering and go after the last remnants of MS-13, including its former and new members, money, weapons, drugs, hideouts, collaborators, and sponsors. As always, we continue advancing in the fight against organized crime, but this time we are also helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence to make our country an even safer place, all in a single action. May God bless El Salvador. May God bless the United States. What a nice president. What a nice statement. Thanks for helping out. And thanks for taking these people out of our country and dealing with them accordingly, right? Here is the video. Montage. Sorry to blow your eardrums out. Much louder than we thought, but, you know, we're getting into it. So they're pulling them out, and it's just a little, montage of exactly what's happening in El Salvador. And so you get the picture. They're getting arrested, and they're getting thrown out of our country. Good news and goodbye. So that happens. Of course, liberal lawyers who are filing lawsuits for the ACLU and suing in New York and suing in Washington, D.C. and every other part of the country to try to stop Trump are very unhappy about this. They love terrorists. They want them in our country. Now, Rubio, he said, hey, thank you for your assistance and your friendship, President Bukele. We appreciate it. We appreciate Margot extending that on our behalf. Now, per Bill Melugin, he reports at the border over from Fox News. He says, here's what we got going out here. Per a senior Trump administration official, there were 261 illegal aliens deported to El Salvador yesterday. 137 came out via the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. 101 were Venezuelans removed via Title VIII, regular immigration proceedings. 21 were Salvadoran MS-13 gang members. 2 were, quote, special cases for El Salvador. Bukele posted the U.S. returned 2 ringleaders, so that was a nice collaboration. And some of the rap sheets for those include the following: kidnapping, abuse of a child, robbery, aggravated assault on a police officer. This judge is like, bring them back. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt responded to this. Now, what was flying around over the weekend was this statement that you guys were violating the law and so on. And Karoline Leavitt says, we didn't violate any law, okay? We didn't violate a temporary restraining order from a judge. We were in total compliance with everything that we did. Axios was reporting this. Okay, this was flying all over the place. Exclusive! White House says it ignored a court order. And we've been harping on this for months now, saying they're waiting for the impeachment trap, is what we're calling it, because they just are waiting for Trump to violate a court order. So as soon as they can say ignored or disregarded or overruled or whatever, they'll do that, right? And some of these words are very exciting words. But Karoline is saying we didn't ignore anything. They said he was ordered to turn around 2 plane loads of alleged Venezuelan gang members that Axios loves too, because the flights were over international waters and therefore the ruling didn't apply. Karoline came out and said, what? Watch it. The administration did not refuse to comply with a court order. Okay, your words. The order, which had no lawful basis from some hack judge in D.C., was issued after terrorist Tren de Aragua aliens had already been removed from U.S. territory. So his order came too late. We didn't ignore it. It was late. We already left, okay? Once the train leaves the station, it's not stopping. So go pee-pee now. The written order and the administration's actions do not conflict. So we didn't ignore anything. Moreover, as the Supreme Court has repeatedly made clear, federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs, his authorities under the Alien Enemies Act, and his core Article 2 powers to remove foreign alien terrorists from the U.S. soil and to repel a declared invasion. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrying foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil. So this is an important concept we talk a lot about in the constitutional law and a lot here. We have this concept of separation of powers in our country that is supposed to separate the executive branch from the legislative branch and from the judicial branch. They all should be separate and separate, not commingled, so that they all play patty cake and rub each other's backs all the time. There's supposed to be some aggression between the two. Yes, we want them to work together, but also not, because if they work together too nicely, we get USAID. Okay, we get transgender circumcision festivals in the Nile River. It's ridiculous, right? No, there's no oversight because it's way too comfortable. What we're getting back to is a return to norm. But when you have this little game of overlapping responsibilities, courts will come in and they'll say, well, is the executive branch encroaching on the legislative branch, or is the legislative branch trying to delegate something that they can't delegate, or the executive branch trying to delegate something called a non-delegation doctrine? You can't really commingle the branches too much, blah, blah, blah. Well, if the president is sort of stepping on Congress's toes, then the courts will say the president doesn't have a lot of power in that specific arena. That's kind of a little too close to Congress's domain. So the courts will say, well, we'll kind of presume that that is less valid. But if it is clearly within the president's prerogative, or it's clearly something that over which the president has absolute control as mandated by the Constitution, in this case, for example, foreign policy, then the president is at the apex of the presidential power. Okay, the courts can't come in there and interfere. The legislative branch can't go in there and interfere because that is the president's home. Think of it like the president's court. When it's foreign policy, that's his role. That's his home. That's his court. Like a building, right? It'd be like a judge going in there and saying, well, what's going on here? You can't do anything on here. Like, judge, get the hell out of here. This is not your court. This is your court's over there. It would be like Trump going into his court and saying, this is how you have to do everything. It's the judges have their courtroom and it is their jurisdiction. The Trump administration has the presidency, and something that is purely theirs is foreign power. So that's what she's pointing out. And in this comment from Karoline, she's also identifying alternative sources of power, which is the same thing we've been reviewing here again for months. Because what Trump does is he comes out and he issues an order, right? He issues some executive order, there's memos and so on. All the liberal lawyers sue to stop those from coming into effect, those specifically. And what Trump is doing here is identifying alternative sources of power. So, okay, fine. Ban the USAID memo, but Trump can still just cancel the contracts, just finds a different provision in the contract to cancel it, and it's done. So the same thing is happening here. They sued to try to stop Trump and his new mandates, but they're saying we've got a ton of alternative power. Alien Enemies Act, Article 2, and Foreign Affairs and Supreme Court precedent. So we are acting at our apex. He can't come in here and tell us what to do, so get out. Now, this is what Trump ultimately dropped down. He posted this over at the White House website, says, this is the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Aragua. Said, all right, look, TDA is already designated a foreign terrorist organization. They've got thousands of members. Many unlawfully infiltrated the United States, and they're conducting irregular warfare in our country. They operate in conjunction with multiple cartels, including the Maduro regime-sponsored narco-terrorism enterprise in Venezuela, kidnapping, extortion, trafficking, and more. Now, they engage in illegal mass migration into the United States, and the purpose of which is to harm the United States, undermine public safety, and destabilize America for the benefit of the Maduro regime. Now, Tren de Aragua is closely aligned with, and indeed has infiltrated, the Maduro regime, including its military and its law enforcement. That gang grew significantly while this person served as governor back then, and then he was appointed as the vice president, and more. Now, this person is currently a fugitive of the United States, facing violations for sanctions. And like others who claim to be in charge, they're not. The gang's in charge, and they're trying to flood the United States with their criminality. Now, over the years, the Venezuelan national and local authorities have ceded ever greater control to Tren de Aragua. The result is a hybrid criminal state that is perpetuating an invasion of America. Even Interpol says the same. Evidence irrefutably demonstrates that Tren has invaded the United States and continues to invade, attempting to invade, doing drug trafficking and more. And so based on all of this, everything we just detailed, in consultation with the Attorney General, the Secretary of the Treasury, and more, Marco Rubio designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization. And now, as President of the United States and the Commander-in-Chief, Trump says, it's my solemn duty to protect the country from the devastating effects of this invasion. And so therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution, hereby proclaim as follows. I find and declare that TDA is perpetrating, attempting, and threatening an invasion that is predatory on the United States. A lot of it being done by Maduro in Venezuela. I make these findings based on the Constitution and the law. And so therefore, according to U.S. Code, Trump says, I proclaim that all Venezuelan citizens 14 years of age or older who are members of TDA who are within the United States are not actually naturalized or lawful permanent residents of the U.S. and are liable to be apprehended and removed as alien enemies. And I find and declare that they are engaged in actual hostility against the United States and that they're a danger to our country. Now, I direct the Attorney General within 60 days to publish a letter under her signature with this proclamation and transmit this to the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court and the Chief Judge of every Circuit Court of Appeals, and let every single person know these are terrorists. I direct that all alien enemies described in this proclamation are subject to immediate apprehension and removal. And the Attorney General and Homeland, Pam and Christie, they will secure and remove every alien enemy described in this proclamation, and do it fast. All executive departments are now on notice, and pursuant to my authority, I hereby direct the Attorney General and others to detain and remove and take all necessary actions consistent with this to get it done. Pursuant to the authority here, I also declare it's necessary for public safety. No alien enemy shall attempt to enter the United States. All alien enemies who are apprehended shall be prosecuted and subject to the removal, and their property shall be seized and forfeited if they bring it in. The Attorney General is also further granted to effectuate prompt apprehension and just get it done. Signed under his hand of our Lord and Savior, signed by President Trump in the White House. So, amazing invocation. Of course, they're suing over all of this. They do not want this to happen because they love them some terrorists. But we're going to go through these filings from the people who are suing to try to undo everything that Trump has just done there. But here's what the president said about this over on the airplane when he was flying back into Washington.
Did the administration actually, speaking of orders, violate Judge Boasberg's order in sending back the Venezuelan gang members and not bringing the plane back?
I don't know. You have to speak to the lawyers about that.
Are you planning to do more deportations?
I can tell you this, these were bad people. That was a bad group of, as I say, hombres. That was a bad group when you look at them and you look at the crimes that they've committed.
Bad hombres.
You don't get any tougher, you don't get worse than that. You understand that. So. But you'd have to ask the lawyers, yeah.
Sir, there's been some criticism that the Alien Enemies Act has only been invoked 3 other times. They were all during times of war. Do you feel that you're using it appropriately right now?
Well, this is a time of war because Biden allowed millions of people, many of them criminals, many of them at the highest level. They emptied jails out. Other nations emptied their jails into the United States. That's an invasion. And these are criminals, many, many criminals. Murderers, drug dealers at the highest level, drug lords, people from mental institutions. That's an invasion. They invaded our country. So this isn't, in that sense, this is war. In many respects, it's more dangerous than war because, you know, in war they have uniforms. You know who you're shooting at. You know who you're going after. These are people that came out. They're walking our streets. We have thousands of murderers that Biden and his incompetence. First of all, he's grossly incompetent. But that Biden and his people and his probably Autopen. It looked like we had an Autopen for a president. And we would have been better off if we had probably. But it looks to me like, you know, that's a big subject. I'm sure you won't ask about that, but the whole subject of Autopen, did he know what he was doing? Did he authorize it? Or is this somebody in an office, maybe a radical left lunatic, just signing whatever that person was? That's not what it's all about. I never use it. I mean, we may use it as an example to send some young person a letter because it's nice, you know, we get thousands and thousands of letters and letters of support for young people, for people that aren't feeling well, etc. But to sign pardons and all of the things that he signed with an Autopen is disgraceful.
Very disgraceful indeed. We'll come back to that one. But the president talking about the lawyers who are on this case and the litigation that is underway. And so here is the docket. You can see what happened right after Trump issued his order and his proclamation. Lawsuits started flying. So March 15th, boom, lawsuit came flying in here against Rubio. This is, of course, happening in the Washington, D.C. District of Columbia Federal Court. At the lower level, the judge is Boasberg, as you heard. And so what happened was they filed a lawsuit. Then they came in and requested a TRO, a temporary restraining order. We're very familiar with these. We've seen them flying all over the place for USAID and for the FBI and for DOJ and the Treasury and all the things. So they say, don't deport them. And there are certain people who are parties to this lawsuit, right, who are actually specifically involved in this litigation. And like all of the other cases, what has happened here many times over is the judges make a way over broad order. Okay, so in other words, it's not just these people cannot be sent to El Salvador. It's everybody can't be sent to El Salvador because this judge is now in charge of the country. So then they continued forward. There were sealed motions to proceed under the pseudonym. The court granted the TRO immediately, right? So they file it, boom, the judge comes out, boom, granted. Orders that their motion for a TRO is granted. Now, in the order, it says, Trump shall not remove any of the individual plaintiffs from the United States. Okay, so the people who are party to this lawsuit cannot be afuera. Then they're going to have a hearing later today at 4 p.m. Eastern. They moved that back. Then they reviewed another motion, and they say, we need to have another order to maintain that the status quo. And so now there's another order, okay, like the same day, another minute order on the 15th again, saying that the motion for a TRO is granted. You shall not remove any of the individual plaintiffs from the United States. Got it. Then they order to appear today. Then they bump it back 1 hour, make it 5 p.m., reset the hearing, and boom, Trump files everything, okay, for appeal. So boom, notice of appeal comes out, transmission of a notice of appeal. The hearing has not happened yet, right? Because we're still on the 15th. Immediately after the judge says, don't remove them, they appeal. Then they have the hearing on that day. Then they reset another hearing. We've got a bunch of hearings being scheduled. So one happened today, of course, that we'll talk about. And then another one is scheduled for March 21st, later in this week. So again, after the hearing on the same day that they filed and granted the TRO, then there was another order, as discussed. All non-citizens in U.S. custody who were subject to the March 15th proclamation, right? So Trump came out, issued that order. So now they're saying everybody, not just the parties to this lawsuit. It's like 5 people originally. Now it's all non-citizens, this judge. Entitled, basically, who are affected by Trump's proclamation. And again, just like with USAID, we're looking for independent sources outside of what Trump just posted. It's almost like Trump is posting these things as red herrings, to be honest with you. He comes out, he's like, I'm going to issue a proclamation. They're all going to sue us under the proclamation. And then we're just going to use independent sources to cancel everything while they're all busy over here focused on this. It's the same pattern. We saw it with USAID as well. Trump issues an order, cancel everything. They sue. He says, and they're fighting over the order. Trump is stopped from executing the order. Meanwhile, he's back there canceling contracts, just canceling them independently of their own volition. It's very interesting what's happening. So anyways, all non-citizens in the U.S. are subject now to not being deported. Entitled, right, even Tren de Aragua. The government is enjoined from removing members of this class pursuant to the proclamation for 14 days. Again, pursuant to the proclamation. So Trump is going to say, I'm not relying on the proclamation. I'm relying on Article 2 and these other things to do it. Independent source. So he's not actually really ignoring the judge. Now, the government shall file any motion to vacate this by March 17th. That's today. So boom, Trump's appealing, right? Transmitting everything over, appealing that one too, consolidating all these things. Boom, appeals. So as soon as the judge issues an order, it's getting appealed. We've got now a notice. So now I want to read these things. So now we get up to yesterday because there was a notice by immigration after this happens, right? And after the judge says, don't remove anybody. So it starts out limited. Don't remove these 5 or so people. Then it goes into everybody. Don't remove these hundreds of people or thousands or maybe millions, depending on how you calculate it. I'm not saying there's millions of Tren de Aragua people, but if you call it gang members, I don't know. If there's 15 million people here, what percentage of those are gang members? I don't know. We can do the math on it and see what it comes to. But here is the notice. So we've got a notice. Then we had the hearing that took place today, and now we're caught up on the history that we need to have before we get to now. So Trump's DOJ submitted this notice to the court from the Deputy Assistant Attorney General called Drew. Very short filing. Says, all right, judge, and this is the same judge who's already ordered and prevented Trump from sending out terrorists, who we read through the list. Even El Salvador says, yeah, they're terrorists. We want them. We would definitely like to have them, so thanks for sending them. The judge said, no, bring now. You can't do it. Bring them back. So they said, listen, all right. For the reasons explained on the record at one of those prior Zoom hearings, federal defendants, Trump, because they're being sued, object to this court's assertion over jurisdiction, saying you don't even have power over what you're claiming, including over the president's exercise of powers vested in him by Article 2. Okay, the Constitution, judge, has more power than you, and that's what we're following. So subject to that objection, federal defendants were promptly notified of the court's temporary restraining order issued in the morning and the 7:26 p.m. minute order that temporarily enjoined any removals pursuant to the presidential proclamation. Now, just to be clear, while all this is happening, Trump is loading these dudes onto airplanes. Like those luggage handlers, okay, they don't care about throwing luggage when it comes to deporting these people. They just throw them, right? Throw it, bounce around, who cares? Load them up. So Trump is flying them out like as this judge is issuing orders, and the plaintiffs, the people who love terrorists, are suing to keep them in. It's like total bedlam. So like 12 hours is just total chaos, right? Because Trump's throwing these people on airplanes. Like, go, the pilot's like, go, go. Federal defendants, Trump, have now sought emergency appellate relief from the DC Circuit as to both of your orders, saying we are deporting them. And the Court of Appeals has now ordered expedited briefing on both motions. So even the Court of Appeals is paying attention. The 5 individual plaintiffs who were the subject of the first TRO, okay, the first one that we mentioned, have not been removed. So if you're a party to this lawsuit, the judge's first TRO applied to them, and they didn't remove those people. They're still here for now. But going forward, and in the absence of appellate relief, so with the Court of Appeals, Trump and the State Department and others will continue to protect the United States using authorities other than the proclamation. Independent source theory. Federal defendants further report, based on information from Homeland, that some gang members subject to removal under the proclamation had already been removed from the United States under the proclamation before the issuance of this court's second order. All right. So now you're just playing around with rules. Judge issues first order that only applied to the 5. Meanwhile, Trump is just like dumping these people out of airplanes, right, with parachutes. This is close enough. Yeah, you're good. You'll make it. Dropping them out. Then they issue a second order. And by the way, that first batch of people they're throwing out of the airplanes, that was pursuant to the proclamation, which had not been stopped yet. They were not enjoined from using that power to get rid of those people. Then the judge comes out, issues a second TRO, now says it applies to the entire planet, because this judge is the president now, and he's in charge. So then they're still throwing people out of the airplanes, but now they're just relying on different authority. They're just not relying on the proclamation anymore. Like, oh, okay, fine. Article 2, we'll just use that. Oh, we'll just use this act and this act and this act and all these other powers that give the president the power to do it. So, Judge, we haven't actually violated anything, okay? You gave us an explanation, says, as long as we don't use the proclamation, we're good, so we didn't. It's really the same pattern that is mirroring the USAID case and all of the other cases that we've been covering here. And Trump, I think, is waving this big shiny object around with these orders and memos. They're all suing under it, and he's just just canceling it anyways, just like he canceled the USAID contracts. Now, they were very unhappy about this. So the terrorist lovers, the JGG, ACLU, the rest of them, it's all ACLU people and a bunch of Democrat lawyers, because that's what they do. As much as we're upset with the judges, to be clear, and I'm furious with the judges, especially these DC judges, they're embarrassing themselves in the entire system. We also have to defeat the liberal lawyers. There's tons of them. And they've got, I don't know how much money in their coffers, man. They've been just grifting off of the American taxpayer teat for decades now. It's probably $1 trillion just stashed away in their accounts. And now it's coming out. So we're dealing with a Goliath situation here, right? It's the Justice Department versus like decades of lawyers, many of them embedded and friends with the judges and friends with the clerks. It's like a whole institution. It's a mess. So anyways, so they respond. Now they're furious. They're like, wait a minute. Trump is deporting these people right now. They say, Your Honor, this is from them. Trump just sent a notice to you, as we just read. He's like, we deported them. They're gone. They're gone. So they're not coming back. Explaining why they believe that their actions implementing the proclamation were consistent with your orders. However, in addition to numerous media reports and publicly available data suggesting that Trump violated your order, the government's own notice raises questions. And so we need you, Your Honor, to step in on this. And they did. The judge ultimately stepped in and set a hearing for today, which we're coming to. First, they say the government's letter states the order was issued at 7:26 p.m. Okay, because they're still dropping people out of airplanes until the order drops. Like, is there an order yet? Is there an order yet? No, there's not. Okay, you're gone. How about now? Is there an order? No. Okay, gone. Next. There's an order? All right, you're lucky, bro. Like, you're about to throw your booty out, but you're here. So first, the government says 7:26, but that's the time that the written order went on PACER. During the hearing at 6:45 and 6:48, this court orally and unambiguously directed the government to turn around any airplanes carrying individuals who were being removed pursuant to the proclamation. Okay, this is what the judge said at the hearing. So they're on the airplane, okay? The airplane is flying out. The judge says, okay, that you shall inform your clients of this immediately. Clients meaning the government. So the lawyer, DOJ is representing the government. In this case, it's State Department or whatever. And that any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air, the judge says, needs to be returned to the United States. But those people need to be returned to the United States. However that's accomplished, whether turning around a plane or not embarking anyone on the plane or those people covered by this on the plane, I leave that to you. But this is something you need to make sure is complied with immediately. Okay, so in other words, the judge said that at like 6:45 and 6:48, then issued the order at 7:26. So in that 40 minutes or so, you get as many people just deported as possible. And it matters, obviously, because they're so upset about that time that elapsed. Now, the oral order, of course, carries no less weight than the written order, and so they should have stopped deporting people at 6:45 or so. Now, second, these terrorist lovers remain extremely concerned that regardless of which time is used, the government may have violated the court's order. Trump stated that some gang members subject to removal under the proclamation had already been removed from the United States territory under the proclamation before the issuance of the second order. They say, Your Honor, that strongly suggests the government has chosen to treat this court's order as applying only to individuals still on U.S. soil or already on flights that have not cleared U.S. airspace as of 7/26. If that's how they proceeded, it was a blatant violation of this order. All right, so they're like, in other words, they're in the air, they're overseas, they're in international water, they're already gone. All right, and we're interpreting this as if it only applies to certain land. People who are not on that land don't count. Now, whether or not the planes had cleared U.S. territory, the U.S. retained custody, at least until the planes landed and were turned over to foreign governments. So like, no, sorry, it's in the air, Judge, it's over international waters. Like, well, you're still flying the plane. It's still an American pilot. And the court could not have been clearer that it was concerned with losing jurisdiction and authority to order those individuals returned if they're handed over to foreign governments. What's he going to do? Order a foreign court to do something? No. Not with whether the planes had cleared territory. The judge said this, okay, but then I would assume that means that they, the 5 named plaintiffs, okay, the people who are actually a party to this, are either not on the planes or that they will not be removed from the planes and they'll be brought back once the planes land in El Salvador. Is that fair? The court again said, again, just so we're clear, if the planes have already landed and discharged their occupants, aside from the 5 I enjoined earlier, then this order, I don't have jurisdiction to require their return, right? Like if it's a El Salvadorian judge, what's he going to do? And based on publicly available information, it appears, right, these plaintiffs, that there were at least 2 flights that took off during the hearing. They're like, go, go, go. It's like a scene out of Con Air or something. But landed even after this court's written order. Meaning that the defendants could have turned the plane around without handing over individuals subject to the proclamation and the court's TRO. And although that information was obviously in their possession, the terror lovers nonetheless emailed the lawyers for the government about these flights. So they had somebody looking up, right? These firms are good. They had somebody looking up this flight. It's Global X flight, departed Texas at 5:26, landed in Honduras at 7:36. Like, oh man, how many of our terror friends were on there that we want back in America? This one too, 5:45 left, landed El Salvador 8:02. So they're like, well, it was still in the air if the judge issued the opinion at 7:25 or whatever the time was, 7:26, they were still in the air at 7:36. They could have just pulled up, turned around. They hadn't landed yet. Same at 8:02, pull up, come back home. Because they want these people in our country forever. Third, even if only the written order is still relevant, and even if the court had only meant to order them if they're still in U.S. territory, right? Because they're like, well, they're over El Salvador now. According to at least one media report, one of the planes departed after the written order was issued. Washington Post said, they're still flying them out. Man, it would have been nice if they cared about flying them in, but they didn't. They were okay with flying them all in. Plaintiffs also informed defendants about this flight. They said, you got to cancel this one. They're like, we're going to get on it. Yeah, no, we'll let them know when we get back to the office. We'll tell them. We can't text and drive. It's illegal. So beyond the concerns raised by the government's own letter, there has been significant media reportings that they defied the court's order. Axios, for example, all this, state media, they reported that the White House chief of staff Stephen Miller and Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem chose not to turn the planes around. Officials claimed that they could ignore this order. The planes were already over international waters. This judge can go get them himself. The Axios article was later updated with a statement from Karoline. She says the administration did not refuse to comply, you big babies. The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after they were already removed from U.S. territory. It's not in conflict with anything. And the president has power to remove these people, and that's exactly what they did. Someone else reported from ABC, Trump administration ignores judge's orders. No, he didn't. He complied with it tactically and got it done. Now, finally, some of the public comments made by Trump and the president of El Salvador make us very nervous, right, these people. For example, El Salvador President Nayib Bukele tweeted a New York Post headline that we just read earlier, writing, federal judge orders deportation flights carrying Venezuelan gangbangers to return to the U.S. because they love the gangbangers. We're sure they do. Blocks Trump from invoking Alien Enemies Act. And then, of course, Bukele posted this. Oopsie. Too late. Already here. Come and get them if you want them. And so they posted this. Secretary Marco Rubio also retweeted that from his personal account because it's hilarious. So in sum, right, the gangbang lovers, given the careful phrasing of the government's letter and the public data and the government's own statement, they're not abiding by your order. And so you should hold a hearing and ask them whether, and they did, they had this hearing today, whether any flight with individuals subject to the proclamation took place after either the written or oral orders were issued. Okay, so timing. Did the plane land after either orders were issued? Like, these people are so nuts. They wanted these gangbangers to just pull the plane back up and bring them back home. ACLU lawyers, let's see who wrote this. Whether any flight with individuals subject to the proclamation was still in the air after either order, and whether they were transferred to a foreign country because they want these people back. Okay, so here are all these just some of the worst of the worst. ACLU, look at all these people. Look at all these people on this one. Wow. Noel Smith, Oscar Sarabia Roman, Arthur Spitzer, Scott Michelman, ACLU from the DC, District of Columbia, Lee Gallant, and all these people. How many people do you need? Golly, all these other people too. From Democracy Forward. 3 ACLU divisions and Democracy Forward all jumping in on this because they hate America. They love gangbangers and they want more of them here. So then Rubio and Trump sent this in response. So they say, listen, Judge, this is ridiculous. This hearing should not take place at all. Says, first of all, these gangbang lovers cannot use these proceedings to interfere with the president's national security and foreign affairs authority. And this court lacks the jurisdiction to do that either. In response to their filings and to this court's order setting a hearing for this afternoon, the government submits the response. And because it provides all the information to show that we're in compliance with your orders, it's everything that you need. And you should vacate this hearing and stop these grave incursions on the executive branch that you have already concocted against us. Now, as the government, writes Trump, has already explained and that these gangbangers do not appear to dispute, the government complied with the TRO on the morning of the 15th and did not remove any of the 5 alleged gangbangers. The government did so despite its powerful jurisdictional and other objections to the court's unprecedented power to interfere with this presidential proclamation. We have the very power to do this, and you cannot pass judgment on that discretion. If the judge can make a decision over the president, right? If the president exercises discretion that the president is empowered to exercise, and the judge says, well, I think that was wrong. The judge is the president, just to be clear. The Constitution says Trump can do these things. If the judge comes up with some concoction, well, that's really kind of against the rule because this, whatever, and all that stuff, wrong. That's an encroachment on Article 2. It's a violation of the separation of powers. The judge is violating the Constitution. Much of the plaintiff's submissions, writes Trump, rest on the oral directives that this judge gave to them. But as they even acknowledge, the court's written injunction properly did not seek to interfere with Article 2 powers or military operations by directing the return of aliens who was associated with a designated foreign terrorist organization already removed, saying we could still do those things. Okay, this was our independent source called the Constitution. Now, contrary to their assertion, an oral directive is not enforceable as an injunction. Okay, there's law that says it. The rule says that every order granting an injunction must state the reasons why it's issued and give reasonable detail about what's restrained or required. So when the judge said it out loud, it wasn't good enough for us. We waited for the written order so we knew exactly what to do and how to do it. And by the way, the district here in Washington, D.C. has been following this for a long time. This case from 2003 says the same thing. And that principle holds true when the court does issue a written order, but even phrases it more narrowly, which is what has been done here. And so in accord with this well-established law, the written minute order governed that came down from the judge. It stopped the government from, quote, removing the foreign terrorists, quote, pursuant to the proclamation. The government didn't do that. We didn't remove anybody based on the proclamation. As they even admit, the 2 flights left they left the United States before 7/25. So they were already out of U.S. territory. So it counts from when the wheels go up, not when the wheels go down. So read it and read. Now, as to any flights that were already outside U.S. territory and airspace, anyone aboard had already been removed. So they were gone within the meaning of the Alien Enemies Act and the court's order. So they were not removed. They were not removed after the order. They were removed before the order. So it was valid. We didn't violate your requirements. The plain meaning of remove means the transfer of one person to one location or another. And that meaning aligns with the Alien Enemies Act, and they were removed. And you don't have jurisdiction after they're removed. And so this assertion from them about the U.S. having custody until the wheels dropped at 7/25, they're not even relevant. They don't question what occurred beyond U.S. territory because that is national security. That's foreign relations. And it's not their jurisdiction at all. In fact, this is the president's house. Get out. Indeed, they cannot be answered in public proceedings either. And so we saw a lot of this at the hearing today. They're like, we're not talking about any of this. Just like, wait. You're not talking to me or anyone, to you and to everyone. So you're all cut off. Neither plaintiffs nor the public are entitled to that sensitive national security information, and we're not disclosing it anyways. And so finally, even if the court's order had purported to stop the government from taking steps overseas pursuant to the proclamation, that still would not restrict the president from exercising his other authorities under the Constitution to protect the U.S. from dangerous terrorists. Here's why. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Article 2, Section 2. The power is exclusive to the president, and it includes all authorities essential to its due exercise. As commander-in-chief, the president is authorized, this is an 1866 case, to direct movements of the naval and military forces placed by law at his command and to employ them in the manner he may deem most effectual to harass and conquer and subdue the enemy. The president is also constitutionally empowered to engage in diplomatic negotiations and foreign relations. And these are inherent Article 2 presidential powers, especially when exercised outside the United States. And guess what? They are not subject to judicial review or to intervention from these judges. Another case from 1918 decided in the U.S. Supreme Court called Oichin versus Sent said, this court has no jurisdiction of a bill to enjoin the president in the performance of his official duties, right? If the president is doing what the president is allowed to do, the courts cannot interfere. The conduct of foreign relations of our government is committed by the Constitution to the executive and legislative, the political departments of the government. And the propriety of what is done is not subject to judicial inquiry there by the courts. In sum, writes Trump, just as a court could not enjoin the president from carrying out a foreign drone strike or an overseas military operation, or from negotiating with a foreign power on that operation, nor could a court lawfully restrict the president's inherent Article 2 authority to work with a foreign nation to transfer terrorists and criminals who are already outside the United States. And consequently, even if one could broadly and improperly construe the court's written minute order as restricting the government from turning over to foreign governments alien enemies who were already abroad, that was still limited by the term where you said pursuant to the proclamation. We weren't acting pursuant to the proclamation. We were acting pursuant to independent power. Now, once the terrorist had been removed from the United States, any decision by Trump to take such actions pursuant to independent constitutional authority is not a violation of your order, which was only limited to the proclamation. So, because there has been no violation of this court's orders, and because the government is not prepared to disclose any further national security or operational details to the plaintiffs or the public, this court should vacate this hearing scheduled for this afternoon. The government does not make this request lightly. The executive branch has designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization, a designation that they don't even challenge. The course of these proceedings in which this court has enjoined and stopped the removal of aliens that we've determined are a part of a terrorist organization raises extraordinary concerns about the rule of law and the executive branch's ability to take swift actions to keep the nation safe. Signed by Drew Ensign, Deputy Assistant AG out in Washington, D.C., and the rest of the team there. And this is an interesting one for them to hold firm on for a couple reasons. One, politically, the idea that a judge in D.C. would order planes to come back up and bring terrorists back into the country that even a foreign leader confirms are not good people is politically insane. And for the Democrats and the ACLU and for the rest of these people to continually throw their hat in the ring under the name of American freedom or liberty or due process or whatever it is, free speech in other cases, is politically, I think, devastating for them. People don't want these people in our country. Immigration in and of itself is a very important issue for most of America. Then you talk about criminal terrorist aliens, and that elevates it to another level. So for them to latch onto this as the Democratic Party, which they are, I saw all the ACL lawyers and more, I think is devastating to them. So it's a great case for Trump to put a spotlight on by being ultra aggressive. Similarly, it's good legally because, as we've talked about already, foreign policy, foreign powers, right, is the president's mandated power in the Constitution. And it's also where the courts have afforded him the most power, where he's at the apex of his power. So for the Supreme Court to come in here and say Trump cannot do this would be upending decades and centuries of precedent where other presidents have used his power in a similar fashion. So it is a very, I think, effective case for Trump to highlight and to get aggressive on because he's in the right, as he's been in all of the other cases. But the other cases are a little bit more domestic, right? With USAID, many people were saying, ignore the order, cancel it anyways. Well, it's about money. It's about spending. It invokes the Impoundment Act. It really is something that you might say kind of involves Congress a little bit because it's spending and the power of the purse, or DOJ going to Treasury and accessing the data. You say, well, it's kind of, Congress did pass rules about this. But when it comes to foreign policy, that is the president's exclusively. They can't make some claim here. Well, Congress said you have to go through someone else in order to approve a drone strike. That's not how that works. So Trump is taking this up, and I think it's going to be a smart one for them to throw all their weight behind, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what happens. But the hearing took place. Margot Cleveland gave us some background on what happened there today. She was listening in and reporting on this, so be sure you're giving her a follow. She's been doing some amazing coverage on all of the Trump litigation and deserves your follow. Says the judge came out at the hearing today and said, well, these are questions that I want answers for, and I want you to answer them for me. How many planes left the U.S. on Saturday carrying anyone that were based on the proclamation? Judge wants to know. How many people in each category? What foreign countries did they go to? What time did they take off? And where did they take off from? Right? The judge is now running the executive branch because he's trying to catch them in a trap. the time you contend they left U.S. airspace, what time they landed in each country, what time they were transferred into that country's custody. Trying to say Trump violated a TRO. The judge asks these plaintiffs if there are any other questions. And what we got out of the hearing today was the government was having to provide a sworn declaration. They say, Your Honor, we don't need to provide you a sworn declaration. None of it's necessary. We literally complied with the order. Well, I will require a declaration on the proclamation regarding the third flight. Like, did you sneak those people out of here? They say, well, Your Honor, your oral order is not an injunction. The transcript said saying I would memorialize. You said you'd memorialize it in a writing, and we went off that writing. So we gave the DOJ a good faith basis to wait for the written order. So we went for the written order. Yeah, but I said, I'm telling you immediately to turn the plane around. Yeah, but the minute order controls. Well, you're telling me that very clear point is not an order? When I said it, you think that's not an order? When I said turn those planes around, that's not an order? Well, I'm telling you, Your Honor, the government's position. It wasn't in a written order, and the written order controls because it gives us specificity. Well, you knew that morning that there would be a hearing at 5, so when I said directly turn the plane around, because my written order was pithier, that can be disregarded? It's not a matter of disregarding it, Your Honor. It's a matter that the minute order controls. So you're saying we were outside of airspace at that time, so no jurisdiction over it? No, Your Honor. We're saying that removal happens when they left the U.S. So that means they were already removed is what the court order says. So like as soon as the planes are up, they have been removed. They're gone. Well, equitable power has extraterritorial reach. So I can go outside of my jurisdiction and order you to do things, and you can't violate it. And so I can order you to return an airplane. Well, Your Honor, respectfully, you lost jurisdiction once you were outside of the U.S. airspace, because once they're physically removed, the court has lost because the act is completed. There's no jurisdiction. Well, the judge says the better course is to return to the U.S. to figure out the course than to say, I don't care, we're just going to let him fly and land. Your Honor, the president, it's his authority, has the authority of military forces and to deal with diplomatic issues. What are powers to continue this operation, like landing planes? And that became the issues between the president and foreign affairs. And so that's his prerogative. Judge says, well, I'm not calling into question foreign policy. I'm asking how you think my powers don't attach to an airplane. Your Honor, your order only involved the proclamation. But removal of these people was based on Article 2. Once it crossed international airspace, foreign affairs power is at its zenith. Okay, so zenith is another great word. Apex, zenith, climax. We don't use that one, but you get the point. It's at the top. Judge, president has extra power once he has left U.S. airspace. Well, he complied with your written order, Your Honor. He's already complied with it. Once outside, the U.S. president has stronger Article 2 powers because that's more in foreign affairs. Well, my equitable powers did not end at the water's edge. Okay, once this plane was in the air, it's not like I lost everything. So it'd be better to argue on agreed upon facts, which I wanted to get to today. So let's get to the facts first. Plaintiffs say, Your Honor, you couldn't have been more clear in this case. You said don't let the planes land and more. And so the DOJ could come back and ask for clarity, but they didn't do that. So you should ask them who made this decision. The judge asks, well, when was the proclamation issued? Friday, secretly, or Saturday? Give me that answer by noon tomorrow. And what was the intention on when the proclamation went into effect? This is like madness, right? This judge. How many people, and this judge is trying to trap them, trying to catch them in a violation. That's what all of this is for. Okay, so there was one dude on the plane who was subject to the proclamation, and you, okay, great. Now I'm going to hold you in contempt. Now I'm going to sanction you. Whatever. How many people subject to proclamation remain in the U.S.? And how many people are in the U.S.? No one knows. Any idea how many people? No. And you guys know? Government? No. Plaintiffs? No. How many are subject to the proclamation that you would say are national security? Judge says, you tell me. And can you confirm no one else is going to be removed from the United States? The DOJ says, yeah. And I also want a sworn declaration that the third flight was not subject to the proclamation. Judge is not happy. And why you can't answer my questions and in what form you will answer them. Since my oral orders seem to mean nothing to you, I'm going to put this in writing, and I will let you know how to further proceed after I receive your information. Margot says, Judge is not happy. DOJ hoping the Court of Appeal steps in. I fully expect Trump to refuse to answer on all of this stuff. And yeah, she says, none of your business, so get out. And I think that's right. Trump is going to hold firm on this. And what better case to hold firm on? And the judge is going to fight to bring in terrorists who are on an airplane. I'm sure Trump put the worst of the worst people on there. And if they did, this is a perfect case to ensnare them in, right? You don't need to go to the mat for U.S. AID money when Congress is going to get all, it's all domestic stuff. These are terrorists, some of the worst who are being shipped out of the country. They want to fight over this one? All right, let's go. So you can see the judge is going to hear that case. Now, this is going up to the Court of Appeals, and this was filed by Drew Ensign, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, coming out today. You can see going to the clerk of the Court of Appeals. They're very unhappy with this judge as well. They say, listen, Supreme Court, dear Mr. Sislak, pursuant to the rules, the government provides urgent notice of developments below from Judge Boasberg. Yesterday, the government provided a notice regarding its compliance with the district court's TROs attached. Then overnight, the gangbang lawyers responded and they asked the district court to compel the government to address operational details about flights that removed aliens that were identified as being associated with a designated foreign terrorist organization. Okay, so it's not just like illegals who are, migrants who are just coming here to improve and get a better life, work in the fields, doing jobs Americans won't do. No, not that. It's foreign terrorists. And it's not like the, kind of pseudo-terrorists that half the country or, portions of the country say are terrorists, but, fight over like the designation when it comes to Hamas or other groups, right? But here it's a Tren de Aragua cartel. It's like unequivocally that, right? And my point with the Hamas comment is that there are many people seemingly protesting and fighting for Khalil, saying that they're not terrorists, right? And it's a legitimate organization and so on. But my point here is these are the people that the left is fighting for. It's like foreign terrorists, however you define them. It's a wild thing to even have to be defending that. But that's what they do. The district courts are now set an open public hearing for 5 p.m. and they order the government shall be prepared to provide answers to the questions raised by plaintiffs, right? So Trump is talking to the Court of Appeals saying, I can't believe they're making us do this. All of the questions at issue relate to past actions. They're not prospective compliance with the court's orders. Now that development escalates the stakes of the district court's inappropriate exercise of jurisdiction and the risks that the district court may force the government to disclose sensitive national security and operational security concerns or face significant penalties from the courts, right? You better tell us, the judge is saying, tell me that you violated my order so I can penalize you, or else. The government cannot and will not be forced to answer sensitive questions of national security and foreign relations in a rushed posture without orderly briefing and a showing that these questions are somehow material to a live issue. In other words, Court of Appeals, we are preparing to not comply. Answering them, especially on the proposed timetable, is flagrantly improper and presents grave risk to the conduct of the government in areas wholly unsuited to micromanagement supervision by a district court judge. The district court's hasty public inquiry into these sensitive national security matters, with no contemplated protections against disclosure of operational details, underscores the urgency and the immediate relief from this court, including an immediate administrative stay that would allow further briefing to unfold in an orderly and appropriate manner and prevents the district court from further efforts to interfere with Trump's constitutional powers. This court should also immediately, reassign this case to another district court judge because this guy is highly unusual and doing improper procedures. He certified a class action involving members of a designated foreign terrorist organization in less than 18 hours with no discovery and no briefing from the government at all that have been employed in the district court proceedings to date. The guy is just nuts, okay? And we saw that he did certify the class. Seen here, Trump is appealing everything, but they've been certified. That was up here. Motion to certify the class. Foreign terrorists now filing class action lawsuits supported by Judge Boasberg, a DC judge, and the ACLU and Democracy Forward organizations who, for some reason, love foreign terrorists and will do whatever they can to bring in more gangbangers into the country. So Trump is appealing this, and the press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, was out today. Here is what she said about all of this litigation.
In just 1 month, President Trump has used his executive authority to secure our southern border. It proves that everybody who claimed we needed a border bill was wrong. We just needed a new president who actually cared about securing our homeland and enforcing our immigration laws. You mentioned daily gotaways, 77. That's an astronomical decrease from the previous administration. There's been a 99% decrease of illegal migrants crossing through the Darien Gap. If you talk to Border Patrol agents and ICE agents, they will tell you that camaraderie in these agencies is at an all-time high because they are actually being allowed to do their jobs. In breaking news this morning, Maria, the president signed a proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act against Tren de Aragua members who have invaded our country. These are the most violent, heinous criminal monsters you could ever imagine. They have taken the lives of innocent American women like Jocelyn Nungre and Laken Riley, and the president invoked this authority to deport nearly 300 of them who are now in El Salvador, where they will be behind bars where they belong rather than roaming freely in American communities. This is a massive win for the American public, and it is going to save lives.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the Democrats spent the last 4 years calling American citizens terrorists. Remember, homegrown domestic violent terrorists. And they were raiding J6ers' houses. They were going after parents showing up at school board meetings. They were going and fighting against pro-lifers and more. And the ACLU wasn't screaming off the rooftops about that because there was a 4-hour riot and there were some bumps and bruises and some scrapes. And most people were there lawfully and peacefully, entrapped and ensnared by their own government. ACLU wasn't anywhere to be found on that one. But you get some foreign human traffickers in our country, and suddenly all these lawyers spring into action. Oh no, due process in America. All this stuff for foreigners who broke the law to get here in the first place. Sick behavior from the lefty lawyers. Now, here was another one from Karoline. She was out today, and Doocy asked her a question, wondering about these people on the airplane.
Consultation with the Attorney General and the...
And if these guys are terrorists at war with the United States, is President Trump considering anything more lethal to address them than just sticking them on a plane somewhere else?
Well, it sounded like you had a little bit of curiosity in the premise of your question, so I want to address it. These are designated foreign terrorists. The president signed a proclamation on February 20th, 2025, designating TDA as a foreign terrorist organization that was in consultation with the Attorney General and the Secretary of Treasury. That was pursuant to 8 U.S. Code 1189. The president has the right to do that. And I think nobody would argue that Tren de Aragua should be designated a foreign terrorist organization. If you want to have that argument, I'm happy to do it. These are heinous monsters, rapists, murderers, kidnappers, sexual assaulters, predators who have no right to be in this country, and they must be held accountable.
All right, so Karoline Leavitt dropping knowledge, saying these people are terrorists. Chuck Grassley, senator, says another day, another judge unilaterally deciding for the whole country. Isn't that fun? This time to benefit foreign gang members. If the Supreme Court or Congress doesn't fix this, we're headed towards a constitutional crisis. Senate Judiciary Committee is taking action, which is good news. We'll see what they can do or come up with. We also have Alina Habba in the House, and she's explaining what her take is on this judge.
I am. And if you need to call it a war, let's call it a war on fentanyl crisis. Let's call it a war on sex trafficking. Let's call it a war against the individuals that have been murdered, that have been violently raped, that have been hurt so violently by these animals, and they are animals. These people, as Karoline astutely said, we can name every single gang that they're affiliated with. We know if they were not affiliated, why they were on that plane, because they came in illegally. She went through it. She gave everybody a breakdown. We know what we're doing, and we're doing it. We're doing it well. And that's why America is safer. That's why our border is safer. And that's why we're going to get fentanyl crisis along with tariffs and everything else that we're doing to get that out of our country all back together, because this country, what happened the last 4 years, it's despicable. We have a lot of work to do, and having rogue judges try and stop America and the president from doing the job that he was elected to do is silliness and has to stop.
It does have to stop. The question is, what can be done? Maybe Congress can impeach these people, because these judges have just gone absolutely nuts. And this was a fun one. The Babylon Bee also reporting, you know, that same judge, he just ordered the astronauts to be returned to the space station. They're coming home today. He said, sorry, you have to go back. Trump wants you home. We can't accept it. Just kidding. That's a funny story, though. All right. So in addition to that, we got Tom Homan. He came out, was answering questions about this, and a little bit of Tim Burchett to conclude the story. But here's what Tom Homan had to say.
Could you walk us through just some of the behind the scenes on how you carried out some of the deportations of the flights from being invoked under the Alien Enemies Act? How did that play out behind the scenes? Can you get a little to the timing of the judge's order?
Look, let me say this. You know, the president, through proclamation, took his authority under Alien Enemies Act and imposed it, which he has the right to do. TDA has been designated terrorist organizations. TDA is an enemy of this country. We know TDA, based on a lot of evidence, are part of the Maduro regime through the military and law enforcement. They've infiltrated them, and look, they've invaded this country to unsettle this country, through, whether it's through fentanyl killing thousands of Americans or through the violence they're perpetrating in our cities. The president did the right thing. I stand by it. I thought we removed in one day over 200 dangerous people, including MS-13. It was the right thing to do. And I see the video that President Bukele put out. It was a beautiful thing. These people are going to be held accountable.
Is every one of those guys a member of the gang? How do you know it? And why can't they sort that out with a lawyer and at a hearing? Which is how it usually
Look, we abided by the court's decision. His written order was on 5 illegal aliens. They didn't want to deport them, and we abided by that. By the time the other order came, the plane was already over international waters with a plane full of terrorists and significant public safety threats. And, you know, to turn a plane around over international waters, we're going to refuel over international waters, come back and bring terrorists back to the United States. That's not what this president promised American people. What the president did was exactly the right thing.
So they're all trained at Agra, every guy who's on that plane?
I'm not familiar with every single case in that plane, but that's my understanding. MS-13 members and TDA members. And let's remember, many of those on the plane were removed through Title 8, not through the Alien Enemies Act. So, again, it was the right thing to do. This was the people of this country mandated President Trump deal with the border crisis, deal with illegal immigration, and deal with illegal alien crime, and that's exactly what we did. We removed terrorists. That should be a celebration. We removed terrorists from this country, and I stand by what the president did. I support 100%.
How do you determine whether somebody is a gang member? What criteria do you use?
To various investigations. You know, a lot of the ways we do it, law enforcement sensitive. I'm not going to share all that with you, but you know, whether through social media, through the activities, through their criminal records here and abroad. So you know, this was done a very. The review of this issue was at the highest level I've seen, and I think, again, I stand by everything we did this weekend, and I think the president keeping his promise to the American people. We removed terrorists from the country this weekend. I can't believe any media would question the president's ability to remove terrorists from this country.
But what do you say to those who say what do you say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
No law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
Yeah, mic drop! Yeah, mic drop moment there from Tom Homan. Well, it's like really old, you know. Yeah, well, so is the Constitution. Record scratch. Eric, you know, glasses come down. And that's how it works, okay? The Constitution is on the books. Constitution in Article 2, give President Trump the power to do what he's doing. And this hack DC judge and the gangbang lawyers who love terrorists and hate Americans are fighting every step of the way. Tim Burchett not happy about it either. Here's what he said.
Attorney General, and she is practically incandescent over this idea that a judge would say, hey, listen, bring them back. She says in part, a D.C. trial judge supported Trinde Aragua terrorists over the safety of Americans. This order disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power, and it puts the public and law enforcement at risk. She goes on to say, the Department of Justice is undeterred in its efforts to work with the White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and all of our partners to stop this invasion and make America safe again. Strong words from the AG, and this is part of that fallout you and I discussed by that Supreme Court ruling, which for many is completely inexplicable. Now, any judge, it just about seems, can muck up the works, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yes, sir. I think the definition I heard, the difference between God and some of these judges, God knows he's not one of those judges. Oh. They think they have infinite power. And President Trump is correct in all of his assumptions. These people are here illegally. They rape, murder, rob, human trafficking, everything else. And to beat it all, they're here illegally. They're here illegally. And at some point, we're going to have to take our country back. And I think that's why people elected Donald J. Trump as president. And I'm glad to see Ms. Bondi doing something correct, because this can't go on. And we got to quit writing letters. We have to have action out of Congress. We have to have action from the people. It has to be a grassroots type effort. And until that happens, I'm afraid Congress is going to lose its guts once again, and we'll move on to another shiny object.
Yeah, and there are a number of people who simply say, listen, I'm just going to keep doing what we're doing, and we'll see how the Supreme Court weighs in. And although in this particular case this last time, that didn't work out so well for the administration. You mentioned something I think that's really important, Congressman, and that is you have to get the agenda over the finish line if you're going to do more than have, say, executive orders and executive actions and things that can be challenged. What, if anything, are we doing to see that move forward on Capitol Hill? I think there are a number of Americans who feel like now's the time to stop the talk and to walk the walk.
Well, as I've said, we have 100 to 150 days in, I think, before Congress loses its guts once again, and the outright corruption that I think that has infected Washington, D.C. will be exposed. But I wish we could just, every time the president would issue an executive order, I wish that was legislation that'd be assigned to a legislator, and I've urged our leadership there. But the sewer that is Washington, the staff, and just the muck that it is that we've created is very deep to wade through. And I hope the American public does not lose interest in this. It keeps the pressure on. I used to say when I was in the state legislature in Tennessee, three phone calls was a groundswell of support. And I hope you all are lighting up the lines and emailing and Xing, especially on X, exposing this and exposing the votes that are going on or that should be going on. And, like I said, I'm not much on writing these strong letters. I want to kick somebody's butt, and that's why they elected Donald J. Trump to do that. If we don't follow that mandate, we again will be in the minority.
Yeah. Let's go, Tim Burchett. He's right about that. We've talked about it a lot here. They better not squander this. The American people spoke unequivocally this last election, and for squishy Republicans to go out there and now start to get squirmy and squirrely because the water is now getting a little bit warm or whatever, it's not going to be in their own interest, right? It would be better for themselves if they would just hold the line. Let's get through some of this together. You'll be better for it. You'll be able to then be a congressman or senator for much longer. Just get on board and don't get freaked out. So we'll be here continuing to cover this and more, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. Now, we're not done yet. Let's talk about this Autopen situation and go through some reaction and some letters and more, starting with the president's tweet Biden's Autopen scandal. The president says those signatures were not valid. What does that mean for the people who got those pardons, like the very corrupt Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Pencilneck, Shifty Adam Schiff, and more? This is how it all started with a post from Trump. Now we've got investigations being demanded by state AGs and reaction on what this could mean. But here's what Trump said. Look, the pardons, in quote, that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by Autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. That is the important thing. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, Crooked Joe Biden. And there are so many layers to this one post. It is deep. So let's talk about it. Now, first of all, the question, of course, is about the Autopen. Does the Autopen in and of itself invalidate something just by virtue of the fact that you used an Autopen? And the answer to that is obviously no, right? In many examples, presidents have used Autopens, not all of them, but they have used Autopens before. The next question would be, would it be applicable to a pardon? Is there anything in the Constitution that governs the mechanism by which a pardon is granted? Does it have to be witnessed? Does it have to be signed with the presence of somebody there? Can it be Autopen? Are there any prohibitions on that? What would the interpretation of, a signature back in the 1700s look like? Could you use a proxy, right? And what would the proxy be doing? Would they be in the same room together and more? But the question, I think, is deeper than just the Autopen, because the Autopen is a mechanism by which you sign a document. The real question is about capacity, knowledge, intentionality of the person who holds the power to sign the document. And Trump is going there right now. The Autopen, I think, is a red herring. Trump even admits what is more important than that is whether he knew about them. Now, how would we know as people in the public whether or not Joe had actual knowledge about what was happening? We don't really. We know that Joe Biden didn't know much about most things. And the signature to us is evidence, right? It's a symbol that it was him who made this decision. Now, that's the only evidence that we have. But what evidence does Trump have? The necessary pardoning documents, which I would imagine are probably work product that are in the possession of the executive branch. Those are in Trump's possession. So there's probably pardoning packets, right, that are created. Somebody submits a document. Hey, I'd like a pardon. Somebody does an investigation. It's like a manila file. Think of it like that. And so this pardon file is being assembled on somebody. Well, what if we grant them the pardon? Here's the political risks. Here's the political benefits. Here are the people that are behind it. Here's what it'll cost. Here's a summary of their charges. I think there's a whole file, right? Maybe even a checklist. Somebody should do this, and then this person approves it. Then this person. Then it goes to the president. Then it goes to the White House for Oval Office review, and then somebody checks off on it and gives to someone else. Then, oh, okay, this one is ripe now. We've got 15 of them here that are all ready for the president's review, right? And there's a chain of custody that the file goes to. Then the file gets transmitted over to the White House, and then the president looks at it. And it's probably documented somewhere, right? Or emails or something. And then you get to the final step where the president signs the thing, or it's the final stamp of approval, turn the key, press the red button, whatever. And there's probably documentation about that. So if Joe Biden at some point says, yes, I approve this, that must be chronicled somewhere, right? There must be emails. It's probably in the file somewhere. So Trump must have that. And maybe he does. And maybe that's why he's saying that the people who were facilitating all these things around never really brought it to Joe, never really gave it to him, right? He never really had actual knowledge or capacity on these things. It was just done without his prerogative. Does Trump know that? Does he have the files? Can he see like the chain of custody of approval when one evidence, when one bit of material is transferred to someone else? And the question, of course, that Trump also brings up, who destroyed and deleted the evidence? He says that they are subject to, not that they will be investigated. They are subject to investigation at the highest level. Doesn't mean that the DOJ is going to investigate them. Maybe they will. I think they should. I think that these people are criminals. And Liz Cheney is a criminal because she suborned perjury and she was also obstructing by tampering with witnesses in violation of U.S. code. The same thing J6ers were charged with, 1512C. She was committing 1512B, obstruction with witnesses in the middle of a legal proceeding. And legislative immunity does not cover her because she was sending text messages to Cassidy Hutchinson or having phone calls with her outside of Congress, knowing she was represented by Stephen Passatino. So they should be prosecuted, but they are subject to investigation at the highest level. Now, how might this materialize? And we were talking about this on the members only stream this morning, but could somebody prosecute one of them and force them then to invoke their pardon, and then we could litigate this in court? Let's say Trump doesn't prosecute any of these people for whatever reason. Maybe you say it looks like too much weaponization or something. I would disagree, but maybe they say that. So they want lower level state prosecutors to prosecute. Trump has just declared they're null and void. So now someone in Missouri, maybe Andrew Bailey, can file charges saying, oh, we got state level charges. They broke the law for some, find some state statute, charge them accordingly. Then you drag them into your state court and you force them to defend their pardons. Now, as I said, I think that the pardons, unless we have some other evidence that Trump has that we don't see yet, right? I think that it's a tall order to undo a pardon like that just based on an Autopen, even if the signatures do look like they were Autopenned. It's got to be more. Trump might have it, honestly, because that file is probably executive branch work product, and it's probably in Trump's possession right now. So they were probably responsible for these documents being signed on their own, which would show a corrupt intent, a corrupt purpose. It's just like if you try to go exploit, let's say, a senior citizen who has lost their mental capacity, and they sign documents for you for your own benefit, right? You have an unclean hands in that process because you're getting the benefit of their estate. So multiple layers to this. And I don't think that Trump practically can say, using the power of the president to invalidate a prior president's pardon. I don't think he has the power to say that. But by intimating that he's got some evidence that shows these things, that Biden actually didn't validly sign these, that is interesting because it opens up the conversation around an investigation. And that, I think, should happen because it certainly feels, from our perspective, like Joe Biden was being exploited by many people in that White House, not just over the pardons, but for years. Even Mike Johnson had that conversation where he said Joe Biden didn't know what he was signing in terms of oil exports in Louisiana. So Trump got asked about this. Short clip on CNN. Here's what he said.
To follow up on the Biden Autopen, are those executive orders, those pardons from the former president now null and void?
Well, I think so. It's not my decision. That'll be up to a court. But I would say that they're null and void because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place. And somebody was using an Autopen to sign off and to give pardons to, as an example, just one example, but the J6 Unselect Committee. They gave, think of it, they gave pardons with an Autopen. I don't think Biden knew anything about it. And what they did is they deleted and destroyed all of the information that took them over a year to get. And the reason they did that is because the information was very incriminating about them. Like Nancy Pelosi, it was determined conclusively that she knew about 10,000 soldiers and turned it down. And if we used 500 soldiers, you would have had no problem, let alone 10,000. The young lady that said that I grabbed these powerful young Secret Service agents by the neck.
Clavicle girl.
Okay?
Cassidy.
You know that was a big hoax. It was a lie. And she admitted it. And they deleted everything. So, you know, what they did is criminal. I think we're about to land there.
It is criminal.
Okay? Have a good time. We'll see you very soon.
It is criminal to ensnare an entire country in a political operation to try to take out your political opponent, and there needs to be more inquiries into Biden's capacity and his role in governing the country. Now, Oversight Project, as we've seen before, they put together this video from all of Joe's pardon, right? Biden family pardon right here, J6 committee pardon right there, Dr. Fauci pardon right there, Milley pardon, and the other pardons. If you mash them all up together, here's what they look like. Lunafrigan pardon. Boom. That's all the same signature, right? Not different, but does that alone invalidate it? Probably not. But if everybody who got these pardons, right, didn't actually have their files reviewed, and the president, Joe Biden, allegedly didn't validate that decision, why would they be valid? In fact, Oversight also brought this out. Neera Tanden said, does this mean everything Trump did on Autopen is void? Because there's a lot by Autopen done in every administration. Some lawyers might want to sue. It's not just the Autopen. It is capacity, right? You were White House staff secretary, said Oversight to Neera, when Biden Autopen pardons, but he was on the golf course. So how is he signing pardons and reviewing files when Biden is signing pardons? U.S. Virgin Islands, December 30th, 2022, and he's signing pardons here. That was in 22. Signing other pardons for somebody else. This one right here, whoever that was for, right? So auto pens all over the place. And the question, of course, did Joe Biden know anything about it? Adam Schiff says, the members of the J6 committee are all proud of our work. Your threats are not going to intimidate us or silence us. And we hope not. We hope we hear plenty from Pencil Neck. This one's different too. Hans caught this one. Great follow. Hans Mahncke says the fact that B in Biden's purported signature on the Hunter pardon looks completely different from the Autopen version should by itself be grounds for serious scrutiny. Okay, so Autopen is at the bottom. Joseph R. Biden. Then there's what Hunter was scriggling out when he was on crack signing that. He's like, Joseph R. Hunter. Biden. Because he's high on crack or something. So signing pardons, who knows who signed that one ultimately. But we've also got Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General from Missouri. He sent this letter back a couple weeks ago, kind of ahead of the curve on this, says, I am demanding the DOJ investigate Biden's cognitive decline and how unelected staff were able to push through a radical policy without knowing his approval, whether it was valid or not. So he sent this one out to the Office of the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz. We've heard of him a lot. He says, look, I write to request that you conduct a full investigation into Biden's mental capacity during his final days in office. By now, Biden's mental decline is famous. Under the 25th Amendment, his inability to make decisions should have been meant as a succession of power, right? He should have been removed. Instead, it appears that staffers and officers in the Biden administration may have exploited his incapacity so they could issue orders without an accountable president of sound mind approving them. That would explain why Biden's orders were aggressively much farther left than previous orders. And if they were exploiting his mental decline, those orders are null and void. Now, the states, like Missouri, need to know how those orders affect us. The Biden White House purported to vacate the death sentences of several people convicted of murder in Missouri. And as the Supreme Court held, Missouri can criminally try individuals even if they were prosecuted under federal law. So can we do this? Now, Biden was forced to drop out of the race in 2024. Even Speaker Johnson recently talked about how he had no idea what he was signing. There was a moratorium on energy exports, and he had no idea what they were. Robert Hur, the special counsel, also described the public alarm about Joe Biden's mental acuity, calling him an elderly man with a poor memory. Couldn't even prosecute him. If Biden could not even form a mens rea, the guilty mind, for criminal activity, how could he be the president of the United States? Bailey writes, there are profound reasons to suspect that Biden's staff and his allies exploited his mental decline. In addition to Speaker Johnson saying he misunderstood the energy document he signed, those closest to Biden appear to have worked hard to hide it. Johnson also reported that staff and elected officials, including Kamala and Chuck Schumer, tried to prevent Johnson from meeting with Biden. Though presidents always have gatekeepers, the walls around Biden were very great. Staff limited his ability to speak. Prominent fundraiser Lindy Lee acknowledged Biden was not in charge. The people who ran our country were his staff and his wife and his son, Hunter. Ugh. Finally, there is the streak of far-left orders that he signed. He vacated death sentences of nearly all persons sentenced to death. Would Joe do that? He granted his son Hunter a blanket pardon for 10 years, despite promising he would not ever do it. I will not do it, he said multiple times. And he endorsed the Equal Rights Amendment, which was obviously a joke. He also pardoned and commuted 2,500 individuals and gave clemency to people like this guy who eliminated a mother and 8-year-old child. Plus, there's other far-left orders that he purportedly signed but never supported before his mental decline. And so he writes, it's black letter law. This is void ab initio if you lack mental capacity. That's why we have the 25th Amendment. But they can't evade that. The staff cannot evade the 25th Amendment. I thus ask you to launch an investigation or refer my request to some other investigatory body so we can know which years and what orders were competent and what were not. Who has been running this country for the last few years? Asks Andrew Bailey. I ask that Mr. Biden, while he held the president, he did so in name only. He was a mere puppet for far-left staffers, and the people deserve to know the truth. And so I call on you to investigate whether Biden or others took executive actions. And if it wasn't Biden, then who? If you have any questions, let me know. Signed by Andrew Bailey. So then we've got Slava Ukraini, Adam Kinzinger, crybaby. He writes, Donald, bring it. I'm so tired of your victim-y, whiny, belly-aching crap. You friggin' won, and you're still complaining all the time. Bring it, you small little boy. Wow. That's what he wrote. So he also has 3 country flags in his profile pic. And I think if you have more than one country in your profile pic, you got to pick a country. Like, just, you got to pick one. You can't support all of them. Like, are you a citizen of a country or not? Anyways, let's see how long we can listen to of this, and let's see what he says.
So I just saw that Trump is like threatening the January 6th committee again. Listen, this dude knows, he knows that this is like the thing that embarrasses him. He won't admit it embarrasses him.
All right, gosh. Okay, I'm embarrassed for you. That's all we could take. How many seconds? 14 seconds. We almost made it to 15. Couldn't do it. That's Kinzinger talking about how Trump is being embarrassed. All right, this guy got his whole career wrecked by President Trump, and he's having a tough time now. So we also have Oversight. This fellow was on with News Nation, and he's explaining how the Autopen scandal works. Here was a question that came his direction. He, of course, is Sam Dewey, over as a lawyer and litigator for the Oversight project, and he was on with News Nation. Let's listen to what he had to say about this scandal.
Not the just extreme volume we've seen. I mean, but it's playing out as we've expected, which is lawsuits are being filed in jurisdictions that are cherry for the likelihood of getting a liberal judge. And those liberal judges are issuing orders that aren't going to be upheld on appeal. Okay. We've seen that play out when the case goes to one of the judges in D.C. who is not a highly liberal partisan judge. The relief is denied. We've seen the one of the courts of appeals reverse a district court opinion and reinstate the policy. So it's really a waiting game. You have to.
We have seen that. We've seen TROs go up and come down, and we've had some good victories here, by the way. So it's not all like this. This judge just happens to be extra nuts. So Karoline Leavitt got asked about this Autopen and pardon scandal. Here's what she said.
Is determined to get one done. Sure, Caitlin.
I have 2 questions for you. One on the flights, but first on the president's post overnight, saying that the pardons that were issued by President Biden preemptively to members of the January 6th committee, that they're now null and void. Have attorneys here at the White House told President Trump that he has the legal authority to undo a pardon simply because it was signed by Autopen, as he said?
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but we all know that to be true, as evidenced by his disastrous debate performance against President Trump during the campaign. I digress on that. But the president was raising the point that did the president even know about these pardons? Was his legal signature used without his consent or knowledge?
Yeah.
And that's not just the president or me raising those questions, Caitlin. According to the New York Post, there are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think
And this is going to be so good too, because Jake Tapper, remember, he's going to put out this whole book with some other co-author about how they all got duped, or whatever the name of his book is. How we got led astray by Democrats who were faking Joe Biden's competency. Jake, everybody knew you were faking it. So if huge portions of the Democrat infrastructure are going to come out and agree that Biden did not have his capacity, and it's going to be story after story, that like the post-mortem on the Biden thing hasn't even started yet. Right? We normally get a whole slew of books that come out from any administration. Everybody wants to dish and cash in. So those will be coming soon. And it will only become more and more evident that Joe Biden was gone, as we all knew, but the cover-up was underway. So maybe this is just the opening salvo in this conversation, right, in the floodgates that ultimately open.
it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the president of the United States autograph without his consent.
Is on the record talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden White House.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter.
Yeah, go figure it out, Caitlin. Why don't you go look? She won't, but we will. We're going to keep our eye on that one. Of course, President Trump asking the question, who was in charge of the country for the last 4 years? If we're going to have real progress in this country, we need accountability. Who was responsible for the devastation over this last term? We're going to get to the bottom of it. And it starts with Joe Biden's position and the exploitation of the presidency. We'll be here to cover it. Thanks for joining as we do. All right, my friends. Well, if you're just joining us, we covered some good stuff today. First of all, we're going to come back tomorrow with some JFK files. Woo, it's going to be fun. Trump said 80,000 pages dropping at about noon Eastern tomorrow. Looking forward to it. We also then spent some time on Judge Boasberg and this deportation battle, which is really coming to a head right now. We've got the judge ordering new briefings and new filings on what happened with these deported terrorists, because the gangbang ACLU lawyers love terrorists in our country, especially Tren de Aragua. They want them back in here, and they're fighting hard to make that happen. But many of them are already gone. Bukele says, oopsie, too late, already in our prisons. Come and get them if you want them. But the battle will continue. Trump is appealing this thing, and we'll see what happens when it comes back down. We also talked about Biden's Autopen, couple stories there, including a refresher on the investigation that hopefully is underway or getting started at the OIG, and more will be revealed on Biden's incapacity in the coming months, there is no doubt. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this. It is a beautiful and an amazing Monday. I hope your weekend was outstanding and you're refreshed and restored and already off to accomplishing everything that you need to on the week. We got Donuts clipping for us. Great to see you, Donut. Thanks for clipping for us today. And we got some great donos that came in, my friends. I see these. Thank you for sending these in. Thank you for supporting our work and for being here. We had this one coming in from, let's see, man, we got some serious donos. What's up, Glocky? Man, it's great to see you. Look at all these. Baby, here it is. All right, so we got Donut is here. What's up, Donut? It's Garfield. It's Monday. Man, I used to love Garfield. What, Jim Henson? What was his name? Jim Somebody? What's up, Donut? Hey, Zachary Porras. What's up, Zachary? Thanks for becoming a membo. And new membos, by the way, grab the members only stream from this morning. We had a ton of fun. We love hanging out with our membos. We'll see you tomorrow. Members only streams are at 12 p.m. Eastern time, 12 noon Eastern. We'll see you there. Hey, Tony Hay Muckets is bringing in 5 more membos. Thank you, Tony Hay. Look who's here. Robert Diet. We got Anonymous Jeff. Snuggle Struggle coming in. Brad Thorne, Alex 0393 in the house, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay. You rock. Glocky says the judge is demanding that POTUS and the military give him operational plans and details and is saying he has authority of all the planes anywhere in the world. This is beyond insane. Says Trump has designated these gangs as terrorist organizations. Last I checked, Congress hasn't declared the war on terror over. America is invaded by thousands of terrorists, and this judge is now demanding they be brought back. Sounds like he's aiding and abetting terrorists. Someone should get a FISA warrant on him. Says Biden is ignoring federal immigration laws is good. Trump deporting illegal terrorists is bad. That could be like a meme for sure. Glocky also sharing this one. In Ludke, SCOTUS ruled presidents have broad power over deportations. Glocky also shared this one. Here's Joe Biden's official signature. Joe Biden smiley face. Great job, Joe. Great signature. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. It's like his little, even Joe Biden's like illegitimate granddaughter who they won't recognize as signing pardons. Amazing. North Idaho Pest Control says, you have the best podcast out there. Well, that's a big statement. I don't know about that, North Idaho Pest Control, but thank you for the raving endorsement. There's a lot of good ones. But thank you for being here for 2 months, my man. First month's the hardest. Gets easier from there. What's up, King Ginger? I don't think the Autopen is the real issue. I think the preemptive pardons are the issue. You should have to be charged before getting a pardon, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, there's precedent for this, right? So like Nixon got pardoned by Ford, Carter, and draft situation. So there's preemptive reasons for that, and I think the other reason that you don't do this is just a logical thing, right? Because then people would just wait until the president left and then charge people, right? So you want to immunize them before you leave, because then people would just wait until you get until after. But I understand your point. It is disgusting how Joe Biden used it, especially for like 10 years for Fauci and for Hunter Gross. What's up, Ed? Ed 2276 bringing in 5 membos. Thank you, Ed. Back for more. It's back for more. What's up, TR? Dan Black is here. Cynthia, Aaron Hand, gifted membos, courtesy of Ed. Thank you, Ed, for doing that. Tony, hey, bringing in 5 more. Tony. We got Cindy Klein. We got Nanner News, Unique Rhythm, Kelly 911, and Freedom Express Media. Haven't seen you in a while, Freedom. Tony, hey, Munkets. Great to see you. Thanks for bringing in 5 more membos. Michelle is here. Says the district judge can send his court-martial to El Salvador and then go get him there. I don't think that's going to go well for the marshals. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Go retrieve them. They're like, no, we're not going down there. And El Salvador is not going to release them either. Right. What's up? Lady Ice says Elon was on Ted Cruz's podcast. Wait. Ted Cruz has a podcast? Are you sure? It was very good. It should be. He's a senator. Ted ended it with asking Elon some important questions about Star Wars and Star Trek. They both gained a few status points with me as they both gave the right answers. Interesting. I'll have to listen to that. I like both. I do like both. What's up, Silence? Good to see you. Thank you, Silence, for joining up. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membo stream. Pinochet's helicopter tours, the most exciting helicopter ride you've ever been on, says, I'm sort of a JFK nerd, being in MA and all. At the end of Oliver Stone's JFK, there was a note in charge to the younger generations. 80,000 is more than 2x, if not 4x, what researchers thought was left. Is that right? Really? That's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to know if there's a pie chart of JFK documents, what is 80,000 look like on the pie chart? Is it a lot or a little or what? Tony Hay Munkets, 5 more. Tony Hay, thank you. What's up? William Roach is here. Sam Young, number 5. We got Dark Messiah is here. George Durr and Lynn B. Truck Castro Jr. joining up. Tony Hay Munkets, thanks for bringing them in. Hey, Unicorn Monster says, if Biden was senile and incompetent, then the pen is not an issue. The people that took advantage of him are the criminals. Yeah, and we made jokes about it. We were joking about it. Elder abuse. There's a statute. There's a crime of that. I've represented people charged with that crime. Some rightfully, some wrongly. But it's like a crime. Like, you're not supposed to do that. They're walking Joe. Remember the Easter Bunny thing with Joe Biden? Like, I almost felt bad for him for a smidge second. It's good to have some empathy, I think, is what they say. I don't know. But when that Easter Bunny came out and like was blocking him and almost gave him a heart attack, you're like, that dude doesn't know where he is. And they have somebody dressing up as an Easter Bunny to corral him back into the fold. It was scary. Like, that dude's gone and they're exploiting him. You could see it. You could see it in his face. Easter Bunny. And then he realized, oh yeah, I'm the president, because he, came back to reality. It's wild. Hey, Michelle, are preemptive pardons only relevant at sentencing, or does the preemptive pardon stop a trial from happening? I would say it stops everything. So the indictment, the investigation. Another interesting thought that we had this morning was whether the pardon might immunize you from subpoenas even. So let's say, okay, don't charge them. But now that Trump has said they're null and void, now it's just a fake because. Now you just say, well, I don't know, maybe it is null and void. So I can issue a subpoena for Liz Cheney's email. And then you go to the subpoena, maybe she fights the subpoena, and you invoke your pardon power. You bring it up as a shield. But we're just not going to presume that it's protective of you. Use it if it's real. And then when she uses it, you say, oh, why are you using your pardon power, Liz? Oh, that's interesting. Is it because you're hiding your criminality? Yeah, I think so. Hey, Decline Management says, next get rid of the judges who were appointed by Autopen. Yeah, that's a good call. Decline Management. I wonder how many that would be. Wow, this is just a very beautiful unicorn. It's very fabulous. Unicorn Monster. What's up, Unicorn Monster? Bringing in 5 membos. Thank you for this. Konaha Jeremiah coming in. Decline Management. Welcome. We got TJ. W in the house. And Greg Wilson. Thank you, Greg. And welcome aboard. Thank you to Unicorn Monster for bringing them in. Rob Stoops, Michigan Patriot, says start naming people involved in these lawsuits. Well, the ones that we were reading today are proceeding under pseudonym. So like the EGs and the, whatever, those were initials. So they were not named. But we did. We named the lawyers who were suing from the Gangbanger ACLU team. Hey, what's up, Glocky? Breaking news. Trump pulls Secret Service protection for Ashley and Hunter. Good. They don't need it. Says Hunter Biden, Trump posted this. Hunter Biden has had Secret Service protection for an extended period of time, all paid for by the taxpayer. There are as many as 18 people on his detail. Ridiculous, which is ridiculous. He said that. He is currently vacationing in, of all places, South Africa, where the human rights of people has been strenuously questioned. Because of this, South Africa has been taken off of our list of countries receiving economic and financial assistance. Please be advised that effective immediately, Hunter Biden will no longer receive Secret Service protection. Likewise, Ashley Biden, who has 13 agents, will be taken off the list from Secret Service protection. They don't need it. And it's time for them to go. Glocky, off Secret Service protection. Glocky, today we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, the day St. Patrick drove all the jellyfish out of Bikini Bottom. That must be something from that show that I'm sure is very apropos. Glocky, what are your qualifications? This one says, I have 4 mental disorders and no real experience. Perfect. You're hired. Where is that taking place? The offices of the Democrat Party. What's up, Peter Barber? Thank you, Peter, for becoming a membo. Great to see you. Glocky says, hey, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not, but you're not. But federal courts are broken into district, and that's where their authority lays. That's why they issue injunctions only for their case, like in the firearms cases. SCOTUS is the only judiciary equal to the executive. Yeah, that's right. That's why, like, you see, like, the Washington, D.C. district, or like the, Southern District of New York. That is a geographic region over which these courts preside. But then they say that they have the power to issue nationwide injunctions. It is a problem. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to clarify it, But the argument is, yeah, they're lower level, inferior courts that are advisory even until it hits the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the only co-equal branch of government relative to the executive branch. It's advisory and so on. But if the Supreme Court comes out and says it, right, then now you have this Trump having to respond to that. But otherwise, it's just all ankle biting at the moment. Gigum, hey, Rob, are you involved in this Rumble app lineup thingy? No. And if not, why not? I don't know. I wasn't invited. I believe I know most of the people included, and if they haven't included you, it's my opinion that they should. The point, oh man, well, that's so nice, Gigum. Thank you for fighting for me on it. It's, I saw the lineup. It's an amazing lineup. So yeah, Rumble's doing this thing where they have back-to-back shows. So it's like, like Fox might have a whole lineup of people, right? Whatever, the Five and Jesse and Laura and so on. Rumble's doing the same thing. And Viva, I know Viva's over there. There are a bunch of big names over there, right? It's Russell Brand, it's Crowder, it's Tim Pool, it's The Quartering, it's Viva and others I know I'm missing. But it's going to be great. And I'm excited that they're creating some alternatives to YouTube and elsewhere. And look at this beautiful Happy St. Patrick's Day from our friend Gigum. Just like this. What a beautiful thing. His muscles look better than mine. Thank you, Gigum, for that. Hey, Rob Stoops, Michigan Patriot, says, where did these cases fall under immigration court, not a federal judge? Yeah, well, a lot of that's happening. Okay, these judges are just taking over jurisdiction. Same thing happened with a lot of these contract disputes. They should be suing in the Court of Federal Claims. They're not. They're suing in district courts because they are shopping for a forum that is most appropriate. Gigum's here. Here is our other one. That's me with long hair. What do you guys think? Should I grow it out? Blessing y'all on this St. Patrick's Day. Should we grow it out? Get some curls going? Maybe we'll try it one day. Gigum, I don't know. Thank you, Gigum. Gigum, our meme smith extraordinaire, memeing the place up on St. Patty's Day. What's up? This old guy says, tell the judge we'll be happy for him to fly him personally to El Salvador, and he can personally work on getting the deportees, getting them back. Tony Hey Munkets, bringing in 5 more. Thank you, Tony. Look at this, my friends. Jersey Girl, Murray Sid, we got Melissa Reed, Rex B, and James Stein, gifted membos, courtesy of Tony Hey Munkets in the house. Muffin Rando is bringing in Dan Usher. We got more here, bringing in Debbie Campbell, bringing in Bob Grizzly. Thank you, more here. His name is Robert Paulson, 2 full babies, says, can Trump run as JD's VP choice for the next term? I don't think so, because if something happens to JD, then he would be next in line for the presidency. And I think there's a succession rule somewhere that says no. James Anderson says these judges don't know how to use the bathroom appropriately. Gross. What's up? More here says, good to see you, bringing in this person called Backseat. We've got this one from Tony Hay Munkets, bringing in 5 more membos. Diana Pearson, John Carter, Giant Golem is here. M, KZ Jones, and Puddle Jumper in the house. Tree Climber, bringing in Murdad Mazhari. Thank you, Tree Climber, for doing that. Gene Crane asking the question, who is commander-in-chief? Is it the president or the judge? Well, technically, officially, it's the president. But this judge thinks he is the president. Many of them forgot about the fact that Trump won. Hey, Nat Delval, thank you for reminding our friends to hit the like button. Your thumbs work, only if your thumbs work. Jeffrey Adams, I wonder if Justice Roberts regrets his statement that there are no Obama judges or Trump judges. Yeah, that was a pretty dumb letter that he wrote. Thank you, Jeffrey Adams. It is like a preachy letter. Like, what are you talking about, Roberts? Stop this activism from the bench. Chubby says all these organizations and individuals making these court filings about the deported criminals should only be allowed to file for those from their cities and be required to name the individuals or be found to have no standing. It makes zero sense that they can just make the blanket, overly broad, ridiculously vague filings that end up having all this power over the president. Great point, Chubby. Hopefully SCOTUS does something. One old guy says, you would think these JDs appointed to the district judge would be able to hire the proper legal assistants and clerks who could do the research so they would not look so partisan. from one old guy's opinion. Well, I think anytime that you're, writing an opinion like backwards, like they come up with a conclusion that they want to reach and then they write to reach that conclusion, it seems obvious, especially when it's issues like this where they're interfering with the president's explicit duties. G-Men says, I pay Branca, Andrew Branca, a lot of money annually because God forbid I ever need him. I want him as a consultant on my legal team. He will only accept your case if you're already a platinum member. So I have kept him on insurance policy for multiple years. Phenomenal self-defense attorney, pretty cool guy. Not sure how familiar you are with his work. I am. I know Andrew. And we've done, I think, a panel or two. Anyways, what are your thoughts on his take? Please go in depth if you have insights on this. I don't, G-Men. Yeah, I don't know. On his take on this issue, I don't. But thanks for the question. And shared that post. Thank you. James Anderson says, I know that we are winning. The question is, how long do we have to keep winning in court? Stop impeding progress. A bunch of Democrat bunglers. Stop impeding progress. A bunch of Democrat bunglers, from James Anderson. What's up? NY says, Biden's DOJ went after lawyers representing Trump and pierced the attorney-client privilege. ACLU wasn't interested in the slightest then. Now ACLU cannot get into court quick enough to prevent a deportation of a terrorist organization in Tren de Aragua. Yeah, coming in, crashing their cars into the courthouse. Pinochet, what's up? Says, it is clear these leftist judges are in concert with the vast globalist criminal conspiracy and should immediately be arrested and detained under the Patriot Act and held in confinement under the law in northern Alaska. Yeah. Zenith, great word, great definition. The highest point reached in the heavens by a celestial body. What's up, Tony Hay Munkets, bringing in Morning Custom Creations, IC333, Pam, Lico Prepper. We got Dear Emily and Just Mojo, gifted membos courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay. One old guy's opinions saying, this judge thinks he's God. Says this judge is getting a smackdown. Says impeach all of the district activist judges. American Trucker says, this judge, I bet, stands over his toilet arguing and ordering, ordering his bowels to move. Sounds like a total crackhead, maybe. Good to see you, American Trucker. What's up? NY says, aside from the advocacy of the ACLU for a terrorist org, which I feel should have consequences, the following words, my equitable power as extraterritorial reach. This is a dangerous overreach of judicial power. At this point, it's worth the political capital to impeach this judge and do it very swiftly, leave it to the states and the Senate to have a trial. And even if he's not convicted, it would remove this judge from the case. It would send a clear message. Fox Brown, if the activist judges want to order Trump around, they should have run for the presidency. Because I sure as hell didn't vote for any activists. None of us did, Fox Brown. And that's who these judges think they are. They're friends with all of the people who are getting, well, basically the Democrats being destroyed by the Trump administration. So they're trying to stop that from happening. One old guy's opinion says, I would start investigating those in this case for ties to terrorist organizations. Check out the Muslim Brotherhood and see where that mind map goes. If this case continues, this will be a gateway for terrorists and restitution. G-Men is in love with Alina. Habba. She's pretty smart. One old guy's opinion says, the children have been running the country and now the grown-ups are back in charge and Peter Pan complex sufferers are mad. Says Biden was the quintessential figurehead, president, and globalist activist in the judiciary. Legislative and media wanted these people using the Autopen. From one old guy. Doanne says, Rob, you mentioned Mississippi versus Johnson, 1866. Set precedents for Trump's Article 2 powers over lower courts like the Boasberg, the clown. Didn't you? No, I don't know. I don't know if we did. That doesn't say, I mean, not recently if we did. Because I think this is the first time we're talking about this case for Boasberg. So I don't think so. This old guy, probably some other brilliant commentator, maybe Branca. What's up, this old guy? Thank you for flying Aragua Air. Here's where you'll be staying for the next 100 years. Enjoy your stay. No, we don't have any pillows. Hey, Rick D shared this one. Miss me yet? Autopen signing machine. Miss me yet? Remember those Bush pictures? Bush, miss me yet? Hey, Rick D, thank you. One old guy says Autopen is a nice way of forgery under U.S. code. There are penalties for document frauds out there. Tony Hay Munkets is bringing in more membos. Thank you, Tony Hay. J.R. Williams. We got Da Freak is here. Baku Ahmad. We got Homesy Maker and Southern Comfort. Gifted membos. Good to see you, my friends. Thank you, Tony Hay, for bringing them in. Mizzy M. Thank you, Mizzy M. Says, thanks, Rob. Hard to stay informed on this stuff without a good source. Yeah. These legal cases are tricky to follow. I mean, even when we we covered all of the Trump prosecutions, and there was a lot of bad reporting on those Trump cases, and we covered 4 of them, plus the civil cases, E. Jean Carroll, ballot removals, and tons of stuff. But there were 4 prosecutions. Now there are hundreds, right? Hundreds of jurisdictions, hundreds of people, hundreds of lawyers and organizations, billions of dollars, and a lot of people who just are copying and pasting from other journalists. So that's why we like to go to the documents. Thank you, Mizzy M, for being here. Appreciate that. Rob, I checked with Grok. Presidents sign over hundreds of thousands of documents, which are not official documents. They're like letters to individual citizens. Others are official documents and are legal documents. Yeah, and Trump mentioned that too. He said that they would just, they would like Autopen for public facing stuff. Like if you write a letter, little Robbie writes a letter, he'll get an Autopen back. From Will Crump. Says, can Judge Boasberg, who ruled against deporting any of the cartel and MS-13 members, be charged with sedition for undermining national security? So some people are, judges have qualified immunity, right? That's the legal answer. So as long as he's not doing anything outside of that protective bubble, he's safe. But I don't know. Maybe he is. Who knows? Doanne. Cheney has the most to lose. Let's start with her. Yeah, Cheney was the brains behind the whole operation. She just put Benny Thompson up as the chairman to draw fire, but that didn't work. We all know who was behind it. One old guy says another statute is also abuse of office. Believe that. There is a mountain of evidence there from one old guy. Bozy says, I read today that the judge who ordered the TDA terrorists returned to the U.S., Boasberg, was one of the FISA judges, I think that's right, who rubber-stamped the FBI's attempt to frame Trump. Do you know if this is true or not? I do recall that he was a FISA guy. I don't know specifically if he was a Trump FISA judge. But that does not sound off. That sounds right to me. I'm not positive, though. One old guy says, also charged under unlawful or accidental removal or alteration or destruction of records. Says, Hunter's high on crack. True. Sharpie guy says, Rob, regarding the Autopen, doesn't there need to be some nexus to the signing that substantiates Creepy Joe's acknowledgement for a signatory on those documents? I'm far from a lawyer, but I've signed many docs along my 60 years of sharpening. Some on the internet, but there were witnesses and lawyers watching. Yeah, there should be some documentation. It's kind of the point that I'm asking about the inner file that Trump has. Was there a presidential a presentation at all? Did he even look at the file? Is there any notation on that at all? By the way, I'm so glad that I've got away from a B&M property and do biz in a smaller scale today. Yeah, there's a lot of value in that, right? You can have these big, massive organizations that are really draining and not profitable, or you can kind of scale back down and have more time freedom and even monetary freedom. American Trucker says Congress needs to get off their booties and start passing some laws to support President Trump. It would be nice if they could come back and backfill what they're doing in the executive branch. Rob, only thing is Social Security checks signed at the Treasury or auto-signed. They are legal documents. It has to be capacity, knowledge, understanding of, and consent. He said he wasn't pardoning H. Colleen's on Locals says, Andrew Bailey is my AG. I think I'm liking him now. He's solid for sure. You got a good one. Better than ours. One old guy's opinions. This is how many times did this little teen girl Adam use like? What a weenie. Quad Cam, what's up? Says, MAGA Republicans are totally radical, dude. Radical Republicans. Far out. Yeah. Quad Cam. Good to see you on Locals. Good to see you. Hey, one old guy. Don't get hung up on Adam's military service. I went to Iraq too, but I'm not parlaying my service like this little girl is, from one old guy. Great comment. He is a little girl. Little girls even have more character than he does. Clark Blount, I want arrests now. Yeah, we'll see if we get him, Clark Blount. It would be nice. Hey, Tony Hey Munkett says, I'm proud to be Irish. I'm proud to be Irish. Congrats to our Irish friends today. St. Paddy's Day, right? We celebrate our Irish friends. Bonnie, are we going to get the audio of Biden's deposition on his classified documents? I doubt it. You know, the one that he couldn't be prosecuted for because he's just an old man with a bad memory. Remember how hard they fought to keep those secret? Congress was fighting pretty hard for that. It was right before the election. Now that it would have been useful so we could all hear Joe, and it would have, I think, satiated our curiosity. But he removed the need for that curiosity when he came and spoke at the debate. We all just said, oh, guess we don't need to hear the audio because he just said it. G-Men, we expect a briefing on all 80,000 pages tomorrow at the 6 p.m. show. Yeah, no, we're going to go through all 80,000 pages tomorrow. All of them. So get ready. You're not sleeping tomorrow if you're going to be here. One old guy's opinion says Caitlin Collins can't quit her CNN job because her LonelyFans page isn't making money. Well, why would you subscribe to hers? I mean, obviously you wouldn't. What's up, Rob? That's why she's not making any money. What will be the statute of limitations on the J6 committee and the destruction of those documents destroyed? Yeah, good question. I don't know what it is. You'd look up whatever the statute is for destruction of evidence and look up what the SOL is for it. So we'd have to look it up. Tony Hey Munkets, I'm proud to be a Scottish too. Most of the people that started this country were Scottish. Look it up. From Tony Hey Munkets. I will. I definitely will. Hey, what's up? Good luck to Dan Bongino. Wow, Dan looks a little different to me in that picture, but if you say that's Dan, I guess it is. All right, thank you, C-Beck. Tony Hey Munkets, I love everybody, and I consider myself an American. And we love you back, Tony Hey Munkets. We love you a lot. Thanks for being here. What's up, Sharpie Guy? Biden staffers were selling pardons. Don't you think and wonder, Rob? Autopen was most definitely in some lunatic staffers or Hunty Poo. I don't know if it was staffers. Like, staffers seems pretty bold, but Hunter, for sure. Hunter was probably running a lot of that. Hey, Alpha She-Wolf, member for 22 months. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I need baby boy names. Oh, wow. All right, well, let's see. Let's see. How about Blex or Curtis Bartle or David Linton? How about Tony Hey Munkets? You could call the baby Nick Marsh. You could call the baby Don't Mind Me. Or Holy F My S Stinks. That's probably not a good baby name. Probably leave that one out. Hey, San is here. Matt's a great name. What's up, Matt? What's up? Marlene. No, that's for a woman. Nick is here. Nick's a great name. Blaine. That's another good one too. Blaine. How about that? Okay, we got a couple sent your way. Alpha. Congrats on your new baby boy. Thanks for being here for 22 months. One old guy says Autopen issue is like taking your dad's checkbook and forging his signature. Would be valid if he say you could do it, but Biden's aides made sure Biden was eating ice cream cones while they use Autopen. They're just like, here, give him another scoop. We got more pardons to sign. ELZ says, to paraphrase an old Irish blessing, may the Supreme Court justices rise to meet you. May the winds of politics be always at your back. May the big, beautiful spotlight shine warm upon your face, and rains of all judgments fall soft upon your countenance. And until we meet again, may God hold you and all the watchers in the hollow of his hand. From ELZ. Amen. What a beautiful prayer. Thank you, ELZ, for that. G-Men shared this one. Efficiency doesn't do U-turns. The DOJ Deportation Express. Deporting gangbangers right out of here. Spuds, hey, Rob, even if the Autopen is an acceptable method to sign a document, but if you have no knowledge of its existence or consent to it, is that considered a forgery? Yeah, it's not your signature. Yeah, like you got to approve the signing of the document and then they can use the pen. Otherwise, it's not your signature. They had no approval for it. So that's my question is, what does Trump know? Waffle Salter is a hard one for me to say. Bring them back under the condition they stay at the judge's house? Question mark. Yeah. Or they could post an injunction bond. We didn't mention that during the show, but was there an injunction bond? Like how much would it cost to send these people on an airplane, pick them up, bring them back, all that stuff. Like, why don't they post a bond? And if they don't want to, the judge can put them at their house. Former, you can't hide the truth, says, if Hakeem was a bird, it sounds like his parents pushed him out of the nest and he landed on his head more than once. Yeah, we listened to Hakeem Jeffries this morning, who's having a tough time. Clark Blount, once no one is jailed for everything you have seen, what will you sheep do? Once no one is jailed for everything you have seen, what will you sheep do? Well, it's a little bit of an argumentative comment there, Clark. But the answer is we will continue to speak the truth and pursue the truth and fight for what is right in the world. That is what we'll do. That's what we're doing now anyways. We don't do this work contingent upon a certain outcome. We do it because we're pursuing truth, we're learning, we're engaging civically, we're trying to improve our country. We're having a conversation is ultimately what it is. So our end game is not people being jailed, although that would be a good end game for the people who broke the law because justice is a part of our value system here. But we're here pursuing enlightenment, pursuing growth, in pursuit of the truth. And if you're not, if you're doing something else, you might want to ask yourself if you're the sheep. Thanks for being here. Rob Stoops, Michigan Patriot, says, who has the power to consolidate federal district courts so that they're all over the place? Well, Congress sets the jurisdiction, so Congress could, for example, eliminate the District of Columbia. I think if they wanted to, they could, but they won't. What's up, Wes Downer? Hey, Wes Downer, great to see you. Thank you for sending in these emojis. One emoji, courtesy of our purveyor of fine emojis called Just Rhonda. Liberal screaming at the sky. Heart, car, pen, whatever face from Wes Downer. Great to see you, Wes. Thanks for being here. Logjam on Rumble says, Barnes says Congress can and should defund these judges for everything but their salary. So no staff, they can do their own filings and copying too. Logjam, great to see you. Shout out to Robert Barnes and our friend Viva. Good dudes. Hey, G-Men shared this one from Harry Sisson, who's just a wild creature. Clark Blount, what's up? Says tax 5 times on every dollar you earn? Tax sheep. Tax sheep. Something. So Clark is back here again. Tax sheep. Like that's like a ba sound. Is that what you're doing, Clark? I agree with you. We're taxed way too much. Hopefully we cut the hell out of it, get rid of the income tax, and just make our income from tariffs. Totally agree. Tony Hay, it's weird, bro. It's like you don't even know who I am. I've been here for however many years. I don't know you physically, personally, but I do know Tony Hay Munkets, obviously. I know Tony Hay Munkets well, as do many people here. You have been here for years. By the way, like I've shared this before, we do know each other. Like you don't understand maybe because you haven't experienced it yet, but we do. When we all went and met up in Vegas, or when we all met up at the inauguration watch party, people know each other's names. You, for example, you would show up, you would say, oh, I'm Tony Hay Munkets. Everybody go, oh, it's Tony Hay. And everybody would you'd be friends with everybody instantly. That's how it works. It's pretty amazing. So we're doing something cool here. Thank you, Tony Hay. Rob, Trump could get into line of succession as Speaker of the House, but both the Vice President and the President would have to be out to finish the current president's term. From Rob. Unicorn Monster says judges are treasonous. Judges are treasonous. All clearly true. Some of them. Lady Ice, what's up? Says happy St. Patrick's Day from the pups. Great to see you, Lady Ice. This one came in. Says, Rob, read this post. No, we're not going to do that today, G-Men, but thank you for that. Denise, what's up? Says, welcome to supporter, Denise. Thank you for being here, Denise. Welcome aboard. Clark says, if your president is neutered by the kangaroo court, do you have a functional government? If your president is neutered by the kangaroo court, do you have a functional government? Well, we're working on it. So it's neutered in certain parts, but I wouldn't accept the premise that it's entirely neutered. This old guy says, Boasberg was the judge who gave the Kleinsmith the probation. Ah, okay. Yeah, Kleinsmith, who was prosecuted for breaking the law and then got no penalty at all. Tony Haymunkets, you don't get what I'm saying. The Irish are a big part of America. The Scottish are pretty much everyone that wrote the Constitution. And this one came in from C. Beck, says, hey, Rob, my name's Charles Beck. I'm a security for my church. What's up, Charles Beck? Okay, so that's not Dan Bongino then. I got it. What's up, C. Beck? Thank you for that. Not Dan Bongino. Tony Hay says, I don't believe in races. I believe in the human race, but I know that the Irish have fought very hard for this country. And so I've the Scottish. From Tony Haymunkets. And Doanne Burrill says, sheep calling a kettle metal. Sheep calling a kettle metal, from Doanne Burrill. And so, my friends, thank you so much for sending all of those in. Let's say hello to our friends on X before we go over to locals for our members only after party. And we're going to be hanging out over there for a little bit. Let's see if we got any comments on X today. What's up, Fred, James, Rob? Fred says, well, I actually looked this up. Biden Autopen appointed and were confirmed 100% by Senate Democrats, 235 far-left judges. And yes, there is a specific person at the DOJ that works with pardons, and Trump fired her. Great to see you. What's up, Richard Tatership? Watching on YouTube. Jody saying hit the like button. What's up, Elliot? Talking about Jack Goldsmith. And Minnie Tika linking us over on Rumble. Thank you, Minnie Tika, for doing that. And my friends, thanks for dropping comments over there on X. We appreciate you being there. But my friends, we are going to leave it there on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to hang out over there and debrief a little bit. Membos will be back tomorrow, so 12 noon Eastern time for the Membo stream. And we'd love to see you there. We want to thank our amazing mods and mod smiths, meme smiths, K-Bean, Donut, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek, all in the house, modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly and beautiful. But my friends, that's where we're going to leave it on the day. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you over there. If we don't see you there, we'll be back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.